national authorities, and academia. The participants presented a comprehensive report with clear recommendations to restore macroeconomic stability and regain confidence in our economy. These included enhancing fiscal and monetary coordination, reviewing the foreign exchange regime, implementing major tax reforms, overhauling the public financial management system, reforming state-owned enterprises, strengthening expenditure controls, establishing a credible medium-term expenditure framework, promoting strict fiscal discipline on the part of government, and aggressively pursuing inclusive growth. The implementation of these recommendations has begun to yield results. The currency is becoming fairly stable, inflation is inching downwards, and we have reduced the excessive borrowing that had become the trademark of past governments. The report also provided valuable advice on promoting industrialized agriculture and aligning skills development with national priorities. We've taken this advice seriously, and implementation is underway, guiding our economic policy decisions. Following the recommendations of the National Economic Dialogue, we've amended the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, to introduce a debt rule that aims to reduce the ratio of debt to GDP to 45% by the year 2034. We've also established an operational rule to post an annual primary surplus of at least 1.5% of GDP on a commitment basis. Establishing a robust code of conduct. I have committed to establishing a robust code of conduct and standards for all government officials to instill integrity and accountability from day one. Building on my previous efforts, we have reworked and finalized a significantly improved version of the Code of Conduct for government appointees. The comprehensive document launched last Monday addresses new areas including a prohibition on purchasing state property directly or indirectly, regulations regarding hampers, and clear monetary limits for official gifts. I've left my appointees in no doubt that I'll bring down the hammer swiftly and strongly if they breach any of these provisions.
As the President, John Dramani Mahama, joined the account of his account of his 120 days in office, that social contract with about 26 promises in there, he says that he has largely fulfilled the promises in there. We did our own analysis, and then also what is yet to be fulfilled, what has been done, what is being done, and what is yet to be done. The fundamental question is that beyond this 120 days and the promises in there, some of which have been launched, others, some steps taken to initiate them, what is going to be done to sustain and ensure the completion of what has been launched, just to tick the boxes within this 120 days. That's the conversation. Also, we zero in on specific issues within the 120 days that for some who have been looking at it has not been fulfilled by the president. We'll have a conversation this morning here on Key Point. Today as well, you heard the president talk about the robust code of conduct. He launched that before the 120 days. On that same day, in fact, he urged citizens to ensure that government appointees abide by this 120 days, and then also the code of conduct, that specific code of conduct for transparency, accountability, ethical governance, based on core principles intended to promote a new political culture grounded in transparency, humility, ethical leadership. But how far-reaching will the code of conduct and the details in there help in the fight against corruption in the public sector? Specific concerns have been raised about one of them, the threshold of gifts that ministers and appointees can receive 20,000 cedis. We will seek some clarity as to what exactly went into this particular thinking of that threshold of gifts that can be received by a public official or a government appointee. 20,000 cedis. Concern is that it is too high. It has to be reduced. We'll have a conversation this morning here on Key Point. We have eyes on illegal mining as well, because the very many expectations of the president within this 120 days. We'll find out if that box has been ticked. The former Director General of the National Signals Bureau, Kwabena Eduboahin, who has been charged with stealing alongside 3 other persons, including his wife, has sent a memo to the current National Security Coordinator on how some of the monies were spent on national security operations from the cells of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. Sent this confidential memo dated May 5, which has now been made public, so no more confidential, some of which you see on the screen right now, through his lawyers to the National Security Coordinator, explaining that under the circumstance, he was alerting him that he may be compelled to disclose matters relating to special operation activities and funding of national security. How does this impact on the case ongoing, and what should be the approach and reaction in interrogating the details of this said memo and the monies that he said have been distributed to specific individuals, some of whom have come out to say that they never received any monies from Kwabena Eduboahin, specifically the opposition political parties, because there's an expenditure item there, or one of the recipients of the said monies were opposition political party. Which one of them? And then also one other item of some money he says he gave to the aid of the president-elect in the form of vehicles and others. We'll get into this matter this morning, so stay with us. As always, we're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. We're also on the Voice of London radio in the heart of the city of London. On behalf of the rest of the team, welcome to Key Point. My guests taking their seats already. We'll go for this quick break. When we're back, the conversation starts right now. I am Alfred Ocansey. Welcome.
So much love in the air. What are we looking at?
Thank you guys for joining us on this unforgettable night.
Paw Patrol is on!
It's Max Verstappen in the lead.
The megastar is here.
Absolutely sensational.
Let's go!
Just taking a trip down memory lane.
Get unbelievable entertainment that is unbelievably easy to own. Get and stay connected to DSTV.
establishing a robust code of conduct. I have committed to establishing a robust code of conduct and standards for all government officials to instill integrity and accountability from day one. Building on my previous efforts, we have reworked and finalized a significantly improved version of the Code of Conduct for government appointees. The comprehensive document launched last Monday addresses new areas including a prohibition on purchasing state property directly or indirectly, regulations regarding hampers, and clear monetary limits for official gifts. I've left my appointees in no doubt that I'll bring down the hammer swiftly and strongly if they breach any of these provisions. A cornerstone of our commitment to good governance and accountability is tackling corruption and eliminating waste. I promise to initiate inquiries and forensic audits into several critical matters of public interest. This war against corruption continues unabated. The Minister for Health is reviewing the Auditor General's report on the COVID-19 expenditures. After the review, the appropriate actions will be taken.
Excellency the President, senior government officials, honorable ministers, deputy ministers, and staffers. My work here is very simple, just to pave the way for His Excellency to launch the Code of Conduct. But before then, I just want to draw attention to one thing. An aspect of governance is like running a boarding school. There needs to be checks and balances, rules and regulations that tells you don't walk around during prep hours. The same thing applies to what we're doing here. And so,
on the 18th February 2025, I set a deadline of 31st March 2025 for all appointees who are taking office or being nominated at the time to declare their assets. An update provided by the Auditor General to my office indicates that some of you failed to meet that deadline. For all those who are appointed or nominated before 31st March 2025 and failed to meet the deadline, you are to forfeit 3 months of salary to be donated to the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, named after me, Mahama Cares. In addition to 1 month's salary that I've asked all appointees to donate to the Mahama Cares Trust Fund. So it means that those who omitted to declare assets by the date, you are paying 4 months' salary to Mahama Cares. However, if by close of day Wednesday, 7th May 2025, any of you still fails to declare your assets, count yourself automatically dismissed.
That's President John Dramani Mahama before that 120-day promise, specific on the matter of the declaration of assets. Upon the audit by the Auditor General, it was found out that some of the appointees had not declared their assets. He gave them up until Wednesday. We'll be finding out if all of them have now done so, because he says that they risk being sacked. Some had recommended that even before that Wednesday, those who had not declared their assets as of the Monday that he was speaking, he should have sacked them, because he's giving them enough time. March 31 or the 31st of March was the deadline. They had the whole of April. They still didn't do it. And then in May. Why? Beyond that, this is the 120-day contract, that the social contract the president had. Take a look at this. It's going to be on the screen. Governance and accountability. That is where the asset declaration and others fall under. Hold a national economic dialogue to assess the true state of the economy and prepare a homegrown fiscal consolidation program for the budget, and also within the first 90 days abolish following taxes to alleviate hardship and reduce the cost of doing business. It goes on and on. He lists the taxes as you see it. A number of them have been abolished already, except COVID-19 levy, which is still on our books. And the president indicating that all measures are in place to ensure that before the end of the year, that is also abolished. We would have a conversation on this and many others this morning here on Key Point. We're also live on the Voice of London radio in the heart of the city of London, also on 3FM 92.7 on a number of radio stations across the country, on TV3 Ghana, on Facebook. And I've been joined in studio by Engineer Dr. Kenashigbe. He is convener for the Ghana Coalition Against Illegal Mining, but also passionate about public policy and governance, proper governance. Showing us in the studio, Engineer Dr. Kenashigbe. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here. Indeed,
it's good to have you. Also joining us here is Martin Peebles, private legal practitioner and the convener of the Kumipreko Reloaded demonstration, and also credited with many interventions to improve the justice delivery system and our jurisprudence in this country. Martin Peebles, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Ocansey. Morning.
Thank you.
Let me do the ritual. As usual, I want to greet ex-Chief Justice of Kufu, Yasantua. We say more fire. Yasantua says in the new constitution, the president should not have anything to do with appointment and removal of Superior Court justices. Yes, that's the new constitution. It will be a world. This is a classic one, right? A trailblazer that will have true independence of the judiciary, right? Then Domahini Osiadio Ajimambedu the second. Thank you, Domahini. You stood up when many were quiet. You didn't think your other position as a chief and as a judge were enough to gag you. Thank you very much for standing up. And of course, Gamanche Kintaki Tekuchru the second, the man pursuing Cecilia Dapa for our money. Thank you, Gamanche. More fire. Thank you very much. Of course, let me not forget the 52.5 billion cedis. Auditor General, yes, Johnson Kweyamwa, SCADU, please, we must have the report. We must have that report. That should even be enough for the Auditor General to be sacked. Yeah, I think it's enough for us to do a petition on that. Because how many years, since December 2020, you said the report will come out. This is 2025. One report, you can't alter it. Colluding with people to siphon our money, is that the case? Because what prevents you in 4 to 5 years from bringing out the report? All right, thank you.
As I indicated to you a couple of weeks ago, we would have to get into the details of that on like a special day on this 2.5 billion, so people understand what the Auditor General or the Audit Service response was then. You know, they issued a statement trying to explain, you know,
and they said they will come out with a report.
Exactly.
So bring out, where did the 52.5 billion go from GCB account? It went to where? Which sources? Yeah, just explaining somewhere. It's not enough. Bring it out, because they say democracy is crowd wisdom, right? Indeed. There are 33, 34 million people. So explaining to a few people in the quiet, that's not it.
Right.
They've shown how in the Constitution and the Audit Service Act, how you bring out your reports. When you do audit, do you meet a few people and give it to them? No. You even publish it on your website before the parliamentarians begin to digest it. So it's that same fashion. Bring out the report on the 52.5 billion. This man should leave office immediately. Yes.
Okay, Council. Well, that would depend on whether the president takes that particular matter into consideration as well. And joining us in the studio on this issue is, in fact, on the matters I outlined earlier, is the Member of Parliament for the Brasibo Kwamankese constituency. He is the Minister of State in charge of Government Communications and spokesperson to President John Dramani Mahama, Felix Kwachofosu. Good morning, Mr. Kwachofosu, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Alfred.
Great. And also, Madam Susanna Edwa Mankwa will be taking her seat shortly. In a few minutes, she'll be joining us in the studio. And then we'll also have Ken Officer Sawaji join us as we go on. And then also Professor Ransford Jumpo. But it's good to have you, Felix Kwachofo. So let me start off with you. What I just played, on Monday when the President was launching the Code of Conduct, he did indicate that the Auditor General had brought to his notice some government appointees who had not declared their assets. And he gave them up until Wednesday to do so. Have they done so, as far as you do know?
Well, so what's going to happen is that we will get an update from the Auditor General again, because that's the only way that you can truly verify the level of compliance. Once that is done, you will see who has done what and who has not complied. And then the president will act in accordance with the deadline that he set. Yes. But I must clarify also that the reason why we need to wait for the Auditor General and do a careful perusal is that, you know, people are appointed on different dates. There are people who were appointed after the deadline. So it will not be fair to hold them to it. You need to give them, if you like, adequate time to do this. Even after the latest deadline, other people have been appointed after that.
Right.
And therefore, those people cannot, in all fairness, be subject to the deadline. But whatever the case may be, I'm sure in the next few days we'll get the updates from the Auditor General. And then we'll look at it. There are those who have said in the past, in the recent past, when the president brought down the axe on those who had failed to comply, that they actually filed. They had receipts, but the Auditor General did not capture them on the list. I'm sure that was an error. So you need to reconcile all of those.
There were 40 of them that the Fourth Estate published. Some of them responded.
Exactly. Some of them responded that they had, indeed, we demanded that they show us proof. And they had receipts from the Auditor General. But when you compare it to the list that the Auditor General submitted, you find that there were omissions. I'm sure they were inadvertent omissions. So we will reconcile all of that. And then we'll be certain of who has done what, and then the actions will be taken. Yes.
I see. Now, because you wanted to...
Yeah, Mr. Ocansey, when you use the word sum, it can create a number like maybe out of the 40, 35 presented. Let's be clear, near ahead of only Adam Bona. So what's the number of those who said?
There were so many of them.
Two. In fact, there were two. So let's
there were quite
by the time we are done, let's know the number. Because this
it is not a problem.
We're here.
It is not a problem.
Also two. Ahead of Adam Bona.
No, it is not just two.
But so, Mr.
Yes.
Let's be very clear. You see, you know, I supported President Mahama, no doubt. But it doesn't mean that once he's in office, everything he does will continue support, even when it flies in the face of the Constitution. I don't know why he keeps saying that they should do it. The number of the he doesn't have that power. It's not within. It can't come from him. It can't come from President Mahama giving extensions. The Constitution is clear that before the person takes office, what is this he's doing? You see, you do this and then the fire will start like that. I don't know who advises the president.
No, it's not that. Hold on, Martin.
I'm coming. Let me finish. Hold on, Martin.
I know that provision.
Before taking office,
but you know that there is an act.
And they acted this one.
So let's get the answer now.
The law gives up to 6 months.
It's not law. That is not the law. This is the law. This is the Constitution.
Hold on.
But why? You see, the law gives up to 6 months for you to have done it. If after 6 months you have not done it, there are sanctions. You get removed from your position, and then you are banned from occupying public office for 10 years. And exactly. So we need to go by the law.
No, that is not the law.
So let's read that. So Martin,
you are speaking law.
Okay, hold on.
I'll fetch it for you. And I'm
telling you that this is the bigger law. This is the Constitution.
But there's an act that regulates this.
When the act is going contrary to the Constitution,
what's the specific provision that
this is 286 clause 1?
It is true, but there's an act that regulates this. It spells out what you need to do. President Mahama is keen.
And the act is not subservient.
No, but Ken. So it is a matter that you need to seek interpretation for. You understand me? If there's a law that regulates a certain conduct, you go by it. You understand me? In fact, I will fetch the law for you presently. But he knows that what I'm saying is not a lie. He knows it.
No, I'm not disputing.
It's not law. I'm not disputing what you are saying, but I'm saying that there is a law. It's called what? Public Office.
Yes, 550.
Absolutely.
So it's contrary to the Constitution. But it's not very clear.
But that pronouncement has to be made by a court that between this one and this one, you need to comply with that. What is that?
In a hierarchy of laws.
Ken, but no. But you are the lawyer. Tell me. So why was the need for the act to be passed?
Yes, so that's the mistake.
To explain.
Parliament makes mistakes all the time. There's a case I did. Case number 3.
So as we speak, Martin, I'm asking you because as we speak, is there any pronouncement from the Supreme Court that says that complying with the act is unlawful? No. I'm not a lawyer. You understand me? So we need to tarry in the way that we say this thing. But the point is that President Mahama is very interested in getting people to comply with the law. It is the reason why for the first time in our history, he has sanctioned persons who have failed to do this. That is an indication of a new direction. So I cited the law to show you that this thing is regulated. It is not just left in the Constitution. It is regulated. Indeed, the sanctions for not doing so are actually spelled out. So when he says that indeed it does not lie in the mouth of President Mahama to apply sanctions, it is actually true. But he has taken administrative measures.
So essentially, Lawyer Matipepo is not wrong.
Yeah, it's not. But I'm also not wrong, actually.
Yes, and you are also
I'm also not wrong. As I speak, if you show me a judicial pronouncement that says that complying with the act is unlawful, then what he's saying is justified.
Right.
But there's a reason why the act was passed. It was to clarify what the position was. And if you look at the act, it gives you up to 6 months to do it, and then spells out specific sanctions for failing to do so. Okay. But President Mahama, on February 18th, which is barely 6 weeks or so into his presidency, laid down this matter. Only last Monday, he publicly spelled out sanctions for those who had failed to comply, and then gave indication that further refusal to comply will attract stiffer sanctions. I am only making the point that there are people who have been appointed a day after that deadline was given. So it will not be fair to hold them to the same deadline. That's the point I'm making. That's all.
Yes.
My
reference was with those who had not declared before Monday. In fact,
yes,
beyond
they are going to be sanctioned. Yes.
Beyond the sanctions of the 3-month salary, forfeiting their 3-month salary, there was the call that maybe they should have been sacked. You know, not giving.
Well, of course, those who.
I'm sure you've heard that.
I've heard. Oh, of course. It is a valid criticism, Alfred, and I don't begrudge those who say that. But of course, we have to start from somewhere. In the past, people flouted this without any consequence at all, and nobody said anything. We lamented it, and nothing was done. But this time, President Mahama is setting a certain tone that we need to comply with it. There's a reason why the asset declaration law is there. Some have even criticized the whole asset declaration regime and said that it is inadequate, and that because of the lack of checks and balances, unless of course some scandal emerges, you are not even sure whether what has been declared is actually accurate, and that the person is even telling the truth. In fact, when you file the forms, the Auditor General's legal departments, they go through the forms to make sure that you filled it properly before they seal it again. Right. Once that is sealed, it doesn't become public until you get into some trouble, and then a court or perhaps judge requests that they produce it in order to check. Some have argued that that is even inadequate, and that there have to be ways of monitoring compliance with this, and to see whether people are actually telling the truth, and that they don't find ways to overstate their assets with a view to acquiring more in future. Some have criticized it. It is valid, so we can have a conversation about it. But the position of the law must be clear and set within the context of what the president is trying to do. We all agree here that no president under the Fourth Republic has taken any action against people who violate this law. Indeed, there are Supreme Court justices, some of whom who were appointed to become chief justices, who actually had not complied with this law when they went for vetting, and it became an issue. But there was no sanction applied to them. So
sanctions were applied more or less because Shrike came out and gave them opportunity to go and they suffered public shame.
Well, but anyway, so in the same vein, at least in the same vein, those who criticize President Mahama for deducting up to 4 months' salary of those who fail to comply with this. Exactly. Is it that punishment is stiffer? That punishment is stiffer than what the Supreme Court justice suffered. You understand? Public shame is not the same as actually losing money that you need to fend for yourself.
Chief Justice.
Martin, yes. But he still went ahead to occupy the position of Chief Justice. It did not cost him his role. Indeed, per the Constitution, it should have cost him that position.
You know what,
and the law decides that it should have cost him his position, but he didn't suffer that consequence. In President Mahama's case, he says that you are going to suffer personally for failing to comply. But like I have said, when the Auditor General presents the updates sometime this week or next week, and the president looks at, he will apply the sanctions that he has spelled out. Also, the reason why some have called for amendments is the way that this thing works. You know, there are public officials who actually don't know that they are covered, especially CEOs, board members. Some of them believe that it is only MPs and ministers and a category of public officials who are affected. So perhaps a way has to be found. Okay. It is done. But there are some who legitimately don't know, and so it's not that they don't want to comply; they just don't know that they are affected. So maybe we have to improve the way that the law is applied.
The entire regime of the asset declaration in itself, as it stands in our constitution, is a problem.
Oh yes, it is. I agree that. I think it is nominal in my view. It is not biting enough, and the way it is, you can get away with a lot. Because the supervision and control, apart from the fact that they guide you to fill it, nothing else is done to check the veracity of the claims that you have made in the asset declaration form.
Indeed.
When you leave office, nobody picks it to compare it to the assets as you are leaving office. So there's a huge problem, and we can perhaps take advantage of the constitutional amendment process to improve it. We can also perhaps enact additional legislation if there's some deficiency to address the matter.
So beyond the verification, there's a matter of publication as well, which is the call that, making over the period. So Madam Susan Edwamankwa is Executive Secretary of the National Interest Movement. She's joining us as well. Madam, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Great. And I'll stay further on you on this very briefly, on this asset declaration. While you settle down, Engineer Dr. Kanachibe wanted to make a quick intervention. I'll come to you, Madam Susan Edwamankwa.
My worry for our governance is the way we're trying to benchmark with past errors that have been made. If you look at the way we've been going, there have been some grave errors that have been made. But you hear Felix say, but which of those? Yes, but those were grave errors. And so what we should be doing currently is to be sticking to the books. Otherwise, you see what our 1992 Constitution has brought us, where it's brought us to. We've not gotten to where we should be getting to, because we've been tolerating mediocrity all this while, because, and especially the middle class have been very docile. We've converted, democracy just to mean we'll set 4 years, and then, we allow a few of us now to go and, instead of governing us, be ruling over us and do anything they want. So it is important that we look at these things, and when the current president says he's doing a reset, then we should be doing an actual reset and ensuring that we're sticking to the books and not wanting to. You see, when you are 34%, you are an F, and you are comparing to a -4, and you think that your 34 is good, that is not an A. And we should be seeking to be doing an A. So in all the situations, we should be saying that this is what the law says, and we're doing the law, but not go back and go and compare nobody. Yes, true. Nobody has done that in the past. And so, but that does not make you an A student. And for us, we should be seeking to do an A. And so for me, when I talk reset should be a proper reset, not a reset based on what, the former government did, which we all said was abysmal. So a typical example is when you then have a situation where, the president tells us about revocation when he was in, and now they come back, and then we are doing, we're attempting to do an amendment, and we won't deal with that. And when we come to do the conversation, I'll show you some of these things that are beginning to happen. Then we need to deal with, and it will take all of us as the citizens, where the sovereignty comes from, to insist that happens.
Okay. It's an essential point. It's a very important point that you
make. It is true. Yes. And indeed, I'm on all fours with Ken and Martin. But you see, things also have to be done structurally and properly. Whereas there is every cause to lament the exceptionally bad governance of the recent past, we must also acknowledge improvements over what we came to be. That is how societies are built. So take the asset declaration law, for instance. There is an act which was passed by Parliament. That act is law. As we speak, it has not been struck down. So everybody complying with the asset declaration regime is guided by this act. If you go to Section 1, subsection 4C, it makes it clear.
Quoting from Act 550.
Act 550, 1998. It says that it shall be done in any event, it shall be submitted not later than 6 months of the occurrence of any event specified in this subsection. And the earlier subsections speak about before you get in, after every 4 years, and at the end of the term. But it says that in any event, after 6 months of the occurrence of any of these, if you don't do it, you are subject to the sanctions that this same act spells out.
Right.
So you cannot overlook this and say that any wrong has been done. What President Mahama is doing actually is an enforcement before the legal deadline set in the law. So we cannot ask that we should disrespect the law. Again, when we come to the LI matter, I will explain. It is true that there's an LI that is problematic, but there are practical steps you need to take to achieve that. And to achieve that, you need to factor in everything that will happen the moment you do it. So I will explain what steps are being taken. So whereas I understand the demand for things to be done a certain way, we cannot overlook laws, processes, and systems If there are challenges with those, then we can call for the laws to be changed. But for as long as they remain, the president and his government are bound. It is just like the GBA calling on the president to violate the constitution because they are unhappy that he has exercised it a certain way, when the president actually has not acted unlawfully. So the GBA is unhappy. They like a certain chief justice. So because of that, if the law says the president should act a certain way, he should not do so. You understand me? If we begin to push that narrative, it becomes problematic. But that said, we understand the demand for better governance. Indeed, it is precisely the reason why President Mahama took up the challenge to become president again, to offer better governance. And so far, every fair, objective analyst would agree that he has done things much better than before. Can we do more? By all means. In fact, somebody should come who even does better than President Mahama. Somebody should come who should do better than President Mahama has done. And whoever you place that person to should do better. That is the only way that we improve upon. So even as we demand better, we should also acknowledge improvements, which in this instance is clearly the case. That's the point that I'm making. Yes.
And the concern that Engineer Akinachigbe raises is the benchmarking.
No, we are not benchmarking. No.
What are we benchmarking against?
But Alfred, if something was bad, what is the opposite of that? What is done after that should be good. Is that not so? So if in the past people were not being sanctioned and today people are being sanctioned, is it not a clear improvement? Not so? No, you can say that the sanctions are not. Oh, excuse, let me learn. You can say that the sanctions are not adequate. Fair comment, but you cannot dismiss the fact that we have moved from a position where there were no sanctions to a position where there were sanctions. In any event, President Mahama has also stipulated that the sanctions that he applied last Monday are only the beginning, and that any further delay will attract even stiffer sanction. I think that this is fair, in my honest opinion. And I'm not dismissing their concern, but I'm only pointing out that there have been improvements which we need to acknowledge. That is all. Yes.
So my point I'm making is that, you see, things happen in a band. So you could be an F student. Again, I'm saying it. You could be an F student. You are 25. Because the person who you are in the band with got negative 3. So the fact that you have moved to 25 doesn't mean you are still not in the F. The research should be towards benchmarking the best. And so, yes, I agree, there are improvements. Again, a typical example is the issue of galamsey. Yes, there's an improvement. But that improvement does not meet the mark of what when we talk about, where we talk about the fact that we're resetting, then you're resetting to get to the positive. So in this particular situation, again, I would say that, I think that there's a conflict between the Constitution and this law. And that, so that one I would grant it to Felix, and Felix says they are going according to the law. But again, we should all be looking at our situation and say, in the situation that we find ourselves, where do we want to pander to? A constitution itself that is not tough enough, or a law that really, makes the situation worse? So you see, for all of us as citizens, we should be looking at being the best at everything we do. Okay. Not the fact that we are improving from some mediocrity that we have inherited.
Madam a quick one on this. You talk about the concern that Felix Kwachof also raised about some of the CEOs of SOEs not even knowing that they are bound by this law of asset declaration. Ignorance of the law is no excuse, but then again, you talk about orientation, so that they know that this has to be done, so that they don't have the excuse that they didn't even know they have to be declaring their assets as what the law demands.
Yeah, I think that is what should happen. You shouldn't have any excuse. When you are put into a position, or the Public Service Commission should have some orientation of what is expected of you. You understand, as a CEO. And these are some of the things that must be said. I mean, you are going into a different environment, a certain culture is there. There must be the orientation about that. What are the things that you can do and you can't do? There must be orientation about that. So you can't come in and say that, oh, they made me CEO of this and I didn't know that I was a public officer and I have... Look, but once the president is not appointing the people in my public, in my private home, you understand? He is appointing the people who are in the public space. because that's what he's been given authority to do. So once he's appointed you onto a board, onto some entity or some institution, then you have to realize that you're a public officer and you need to find out what are the things that are required of me as a public officer. So you can't have that excuse to say that I didn't know that I was a public officer, and then who appointed you? The person who appointed you is the number one public person in this country. You get it. So I think that if there is that deficiency in terms of an orientation of people who are being appointed, that must be what you call it, sought and dealt with. You understand? We can't go on with ignorance and say that, well, I didn't know. Yeah. So that must be dealt with as quickly as possible. What I wanted to ask was, the president gave them 48 hours.
Yes.
That they should, if they hadn't done it, the 48 hours is up.
They have elapsed. They elapsed on Wednesday.
So have people who haven't done so, will we see them at their desk, let's say, coming Monday? No, because they should not be.
I indicated that the only way the president can find out is if he receives information from the Auditor General about who has filed and who has not.
Okay,
and as in the past.
No, but he says that you yourself, you should realize that you haven't filed. So
but of course, the president is most unlikely not to step there. It is up to the president to enforce it. So the president needs to obtain the information.
So and he should be expecting people to write. So he should tell them, okay, those of you who haven't done it, write to me and.
No. He will have a list. The reason why he knew that people had not complied was that he received an update from the Auditor General.
So by now he should have received the update.
No, it will come in. It will come early next week, I'm sure. So
early next week.
Once he gets it,
sure as night follows.
Absolutely.
We are looking.
And it is like that you know the date on which the person filed.
The president must start the way he means to go.
Sure.
He must put his foot down. If he does this, other people will sit up when he says certain things. If he doesn't, when he says things, people will just say, oh, who I better, and move on, and it will be business as usual. If this is his legacy term, he should make sure he puts his foot down. He must do the right thing. When you do the right thing, you will never be found faulting. You understand? No matter whose ox is God. You definitely be vindicated when we are talking about you. So that is one of the things that they say. But like Ken said, with the resetting, it's supposed to be a mindset change. The president is leading the way. We must follow. A certain culture demands that when the head is doing the things, his people must reflect him. As I was looking at it, as far back as in February, he declared it publicly that I am, this is what I am doing, etc., etc. He was not required to do it publicly. He was required to do it, but not necessarily publicly. We would want that, yes, if his people are actually doing, let them come out and say, look, I've done it. I've done it. We are following the leader's footsteps. We are reflecting him, and that has to happen. But the law itself, in some ways, we are doing constitutional reform and things must change. You understand? It should be more public enough. I think that when they put into the law, we were still in that era where Ghanaians were more modest about their wealth and were more and didn't flaunt it and in people's faces. You understand?
Okay.
It wasn't the norm. It wasn't the culture. We moved away gradually from that kind of culture where people are flaunting their wealth in our faces and everything. Then the law must change. It shouldn't be hidden anymore. You understand? We want our public this thing to let us know how wealthy they are or how poor they are. You understand? And so it should not be a hidden document where it is only opened when something happens. You get it? It should be. We should know. People are struggling to get onto the most rich list and all sorts of things now. Let's see. You understand? And then of course we are able to do lifestyle audits along the way to see whether, I mean, what you are being paid and what you are getting is actually, you know, nobody expects you to, if you come into a position and you have one house and you legitimately save and build a second house, I don't think anybody is going to say, why did you understand? It is the kind of inordinate wealth that people get within the 4 years that make people you know, be surprised and
not willing to disclose or declare.
But if you genuinely, because people do get richer and not necessarily in a corrupt way. You understand? And so we definitely want to see people get wealthier. You understand? We want to be a wealthy to say, but we want people to do it in the legitimate way. So nobody is saying that, I mean, once you declare that you have one house, if in 4 years or in 8 years you have a second house, you know, if in 4 or 8 years you have 20 or 25 houses, then that raises eyebrows. You understand? So we would want that the law will change, or we will go above and beyond it. Right now, it says it should be hidden. Maybe we are still in that culture where, you know, people don't want people to know their net worth. Okay, in terms of, but we
had a previous law where we're publishing. Look at look at some of them. Rollins, PV Obey, plenty. We had that culture. It's a constitution that sent us back. Gazette,
PNDC. The PNDC.
Yeah. So from the 70s. When I guess we'll go further into it.
So maybe we should go back to that. You understand? We actually want to see that our public officers are doing the right thing.
Okay.
Then we can have, then when we are having the lifestyle audits and stuff like that, we know that there's a baseline. You know, this was the baseline.
This directly ties into the code of conduct, you know, that was launched as well. What signal does that send to you?
I like the code of conduct. It's important that there is a code of conduct for people. I mean, that's the ethical things to do, because there are certain things that the law does not cover, and the ethics must cover. We would want that the code of ethics will not just end there. It will become law enough for it to be continuous. That, you know, when President Mahama leaves the scene, another president comes and is not following through with it. You get it?
Yeah.
So we're happy with it. We like it, but we would hope that it is not just a beautiful document, but something that we would actually follow through, and the president will ensure that it happens. You understand?
Right.
I mean, look at the conflict of interest. I mean, this is a country where conflict of interest, it's not that we don't understand conflict of interest. You understand? And so we mess up. And I see that there's quite a bit of, I haven't been able to read through, but there's quite a bit of it in terms of conflict of interest.
Yes.
I mean, because we know that in the previous regime, people who are in the public space were doing things that were blatantly, for my mind, conflict of interest. I mean, if you had, what's his name, the finance minister, his company, even though he said that he was no longer in the direct affairs of his company, it was his company who was benefiting from the loans that we were taking. How does that not be a conflict of interest? And yet we sat down in Ghanaians and people defended it. You understand? I mean,
so we sued him. We sued him that he should return the money. We are in court. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. You see, of course, look at the hotel issues. Had the unions not put their foot down, we probably would have sold the hotels to the agric minister. You understand? And say there's no conflict of interest. I mean, and so I guess that there must be some teaching, some drumming in the head of the things that a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest does not necessarily mean that, you know, it's about a potential. It's not it has happened. It's about the potential of it happening. You understand? It's about being without blemish totally. You don't wait for the conflict of interest to happen. It's you see the potential of it happen, you declare it right away. And so I think that code of ethics that we have now, we should all study it. You know, we should and make sure that we know the code of ethics. It is not just for the public officers right now. It should be for all of us, because it should permeate all our life. Yes, you go into, you work in the university, there's a code of ethics. You work here, there's a code of ethics. You're a pharmacist, there's a code of ethics and things like that. But it doesn't seem to have permeated into our system. Right now, this one, it should be, we should go to the primary schools and teach the primary schools. You know, you remember in Kuma's, the young pioneers, they had a code of ethics. You understand? You protect state property. They were teaching that to young people. Have we taught our young people that? To protect state property? We haven't. So this code of ethics, yes, fantastic. This should be something that they should be adding to their civic education that they give to primary school children. They grow up in an ethical manner, knowing that this is the way we should behave.
Great. Generally, a good signal you say, but they will drill down into some detail. Is heavy on conflict of interest, yes, because of those three levels of conflict of interest, either being real, apparent, or perceived. And that is where some of the detail of this code of conduct would also be interrogated. But Lawyer Matipebo, just on that particular point, and you made reference to what existing or previous law was in terms of the publication of assets, which was then done away with when we got into the 1992 Constitution or the Fourth Republic. There are concerns by then, sometime in 1999, members of Parliament, this matter came up. They said that if they publicly declare their assets, armed robbers will target them and attack them for their. That was something that members of Parliament said in 1999, specifically on the 7th of October. So it's not. We have gone all around and come back to this point where we believe that publication of assets, so that we all get to know what our public officials own before they get into office, is the right way to go. But then what has to be done quickly?
Okay. Yes, so as you rightly said, under the previous law, PNC law 330, right, they were publishing their assets. That was before the Constitution came into being. So I have here some of the Gazette publications. You see declaration of assets and liabilities under PNC law 280. So you see here, Jane Edukufi, Obimpe, Stephen George, Commodore, then Buta Kojo Adunkwa, then Sapon Nana Kwame Akwoku, that's Nana Akwoku Sapon, the chief. Don Atta Eric George Alexander. You have Koran Emmanuel Apia, Ibrahim Isaka Adam, that's I think the Minister of Agric, Ibrahim Adam. Then Yebua Vida Amadie or Amadi. There are a number. You see Sarah Mensah, Ben Abdallah, Eje Mafo, Osafo Mafo's brother, I guess. Thompson, William Eje, Bawa John, Ewun Toma, Austin Atu, etc. There are many. I have some. Yes, that's it. This is how we're publishing. So as for the claim by the MPs that they would be attacked by armed robbers, it's hogwash. Absolute hogwash. You know, at that time we're not as engaged as a people as today. That's how they got away with it. So if you go to the Constitution Review Commission report at page 306, they came to this point and they said, look, they show that in Africa, our peers, there are 5 countries ahead of us. 306. You see South Africa, Cape Verde, can you imagine? War-torn Liberia. War-torn Liberia. They publish page 309. Look at it. It says 5 countries. That's those that publish. Cape Verde, Republic of Central Africa, Liberia, Sao Tome and Principe, and South Africa. That's it. So if Liberia is publishing, we, Sankofa, something we're doing in Ghana, why should we? Liberia should never warp us in any field. Liberia should never be ahead of us in any field. I mean, come on. Look what on Liberia that we went to save. They are ahead, and we are here saying what? Well, so what it is that, yeah, the conversation eventually died down. So let's go a bit into the history. There are two main things in the Akufo-Addo's regime, right? And even before we go into the history, it's actually, as far as I'm, this will keep making sense. So the same name is Sofosu, but sometimes I think my middle name. So this Sofosu, hey, somebody says today is your birthday. Well, that is true. So happy birthday. I will fire you. It doesn't mean that it's a problem. So happy birthday. Good Lord continue to bless you, give you wisdom, especially courage to do the right thing. Wisdom and courage. Not a problem. I mean, you not loot our properties, okay? Don't loot our state funds. All right, okay. So you look at it right now as we speak on this matter of asset declaration. When we went to the IMF, civil society fought, Ace and Kuma, Mary, Ada and Co, they fought, and it was made a conditionality. So as far as I'm aware, as we sit here, it's an IMF conditionality, and that's where my problem is with the IMF. You know, this thing, it didn't start here, even from Europe. They had the same problem. So I was thinking that the IMF, because they come from America and Europe, look, America, they had that law in 1978, the Government Ethics Act. 1978, more than 46 years ago, you had this law. Europe, they had similar problems with corruption. If you read blah blah blah, then they've improved, so they do asset declaration. So if you are doing an IMF deal and our civil society have fought that, let's do a new public code of conduct for public officers, blah blah blah, you've put it in there, you should tie it to a certain disbursement. You just don't put it in. We've had 4 disbursements now, right? I think 4. No, they should have tied it that maybe by the 3rd disbursement. They should have tied it to a specific disbursement that by the time you are coming for the 3rd tranche, you must have passed that law. I know that one and the BOG law. So the BOG to want to make the governor very independent. You know, like the way, even if not the American one, but the American one, the way they do it, you don't have the, they do it in such a way that presidents come and go, and some of the governors, their tenures, so their tenures go beyond the 4-year cycle. So at least there's that independence. But Ghana here, the way you change the government, the whole board goes, right? Those things, yes. So me, the thing is that it's an IMF conditionality as far as I'm aware. And Akufo-Addo in 2023 said that at the BAR conference. So if we Google, we've discussed these topics.
He said he was going to give a world class.
Yes. So that's the phrase in Cape Coast, near your constituency. He said world class bill, and then later Godfrey Dami came out and said he's the one in charge of drafting the bill, seeing to it, right? Then in 2024 September in Kumasi, Akufo-Addo said yes. Notwithstanding that he had just about 3 months to go, he was still very confident that he was going to pass it. So 2023, from world class to 2024, I'll pass it in the next 3 to 4 months before I leave. Then JM takes over, and in the 5th month, at the launch of this code, we don't hear anything about the bill. So what we beg is Mr. Ocansey, Abdallah, you guys should interview Godfrey Dami. Since Akufo-Addo said he was confident he will pass it in 3 to 4 months before leaving, let's see the bill Godfrey Dami left behind. Let's see it. And then let's ask Dr. Ayeni, what is happening to that bill? Okay. Unless they went and had a new deal. My main point is that it's an IMF conditionality. I don't know. Have they renegotiated the IMF deal? And I'm not sure you could have taken that out. The IMF too must answer questions. Abdallah, you guys go there and ask them, why are they being lackadaisical like that? I mean, you see, these are the things that make people say that this Bretton Woods institutions, they've never meant well for us. They don't mean well. From the day, look, Thatcher and Reagan said we shouldn't have a development bank that will help developing countries. Then I knew that these people.
So while we wait for an answer to that particular, the 2 questions that you ask, this code of conduct for the political appointees launched by the president, what signal does it send to you? I mean, because the question you ask about, certainly this cannot and should not replace the code of conduct for public officers bill. Yes. It should not be assumed to even replace that.
Yes.
But what signal does this send to you?
Well, so, my thoughts are still evolving because I've been looking through the code. And where and I'm happy Mr. Fusu mentioned it, where the public discussion was in Akufo-Addo's government was that we need publication of the assets like done in 5 African countries, some of whom we are ahead of, right? Okay. And then verification, go and verify. When I, so far, unless maybe I haven't read it well, I stand to be corrected. I don't see in the code publication of the assets and verification. Mr. Fosu, unless maybe I haven't read it well.
Law, but you know that it has to be done according to law. Oh. You see, again, if I were to explain, if you allow me, you see, Alfred, there are 2 things that we need to consider. You see, it is not everything that you can write into law. Or it is not everything that constitutes a violation of law. For instance, if you travel 100 times as a minister in a year, it is not unlawful. But it won't make sense. You understand me? You can't go to parliament and say a minister cannot travel 100 times. It won't make sense. But it clearly is not something that is acceptable. So how do you check ministers from embarking on this sort of behavior as a president? For instance, it is not unlawful for your producer to enter the studio and eat wache here. If you go and report him that he has ate wache here, the police will not take any action because it's not unlawful. But it is not proper. And your ethics here don't allow it.
It's unlawful.
Very good
for media general.
Yes, but he's not going to go to jail if you report to the police station. Why is that the case? You have done that to ensure that you have smooth operations and that this place is running in an orderly fashion and that people comport themselves. So that is the essence of a code of conduct. For instance, there are provisions that says that a minister should be respectful, should respect the city. If I come and sit here and I'm rude and arrogant, you can't throw me into jail. I will come under public condemnation, and it will give the government bad press. It may even lead to our exit from power. So you cannot legislate that. You understand me? It is not unlawful, but it is not acceptable. So this is what this code of conduct seeks to achieve. It is without prejudice to any other action that is taken, to put those things that you can codify into law in a public what do you call it? Code of public officers, code of conduct for public officers law or bill. You understand me? So the 2 are separate, and that is how we need to understand it. There are aspects of this that are already in law. Aspects of this, for instance, conflict of interest is already spelled out in law, is it not? It is there. If you violate it, there are sanctions. Charge will come after you, as it has done in previous cases. If you receive a bribe, for instance, it is unlawful. You can go to jail for that. So it is already there. But they are scattered within our law. So when you are an appointee, especially for those who are coming into government for the first time, there is a need for clarity to be brought on what you can and cannot do as a public official. And that is what this code of conduct seeks to achieve. But as for those things that constitute offenses against the law, they will come. I'm certain that the president is interested in ensuring that wherever the previous government left the bill is continued. But again, you are the lawyer, and I'm a member of parliament. I know that if the bill has not been passed before the last parliament rises, it's elapsed. So you have to start all.
Yeah, I didn't even go into
absolutely.
Parliament. So that's why I say it's
and we cannot. And going and actually enacting a law, going through the process again takes a bit of time. You perhaps may have to do civil consultation, have it drafted back and forth and all that. Parliamentary committees have to sit, amendments have to be taken and what have you. We cannot wait up until that time before members of this government are made aware of what they can or cannot do. And I'm sure you've gone through the code. You see that there are many of those things in there that you cannot take anybody to court for. But they are not things that are acceptable. So President Obama says, if you are a member of my government, these are the things you need to take notice of. I have noticed that some government officials have a penchant for traveling for frivolous reasons. I am not going to tolerate it. Before you travel, submit a written notification to the Office of the Chief of Staff. He will verify, he will scrutinize it and see whether it is important, has any relevance before you go. And indeed, I can tell you for free that there are people who have submitted such requests who have been declined because it was not deemed necessary. So it is, but this is an in-house activity. It's not something that we need to bore the public with. But it is in there to ensure that we safeguard public resources from flagrant abuse by persons who want to profit. It says that all government officials must bear in mind that we were elected into office to serve, and therefore we cannot lord it over anybody. So if you are rude to the public or you conduct yourself in a way that is not acceptable, there are sanctions. Indeed, I can tell you also for free. You remember the 3 RDC? In all honesty, he didn't break any law. You can even say that he was provoked because of the rude comments that was made about regarding the things that he was saying.
Yes.
And that his reaction was over the top. It was not acceptable for a public official. Indeed, President Mama yanked him to the Flagstaff House and cautioned him to be wary of how he responds to public criticism. 2-3 weeks after that, and I can tell you for free also that I and a colleague of mine actually intervened and pleaded that we thought that, yes, it was not sightly, but we didn't think that it constituted an offense grave enough to warrant dismissal. So after some consideration, the president said, okay, but I'm cautioning you, ensure that you don't do this thing again. I think 3 weeks or so later, he granted an interview to Joy FM. And then he was asked an innocuous question about what he made of the whole Buaha. Then he said, oh, even that comment had made him popular, and the people who didn't know of him had heard of him because of that. That very day, he was fired by President Mama for not expressing remorse and regret over the comment that he made. So that is an administrative measure. I don't think that if you took him to court, any court would uphold a claim that he had committed any offense. But President Mama thought that it was not acceptable behavior, so he dismissed him. To date, there are those who argue that perhaps it was even a harsh reaction to what the man has said. And what he said was, but it shows you that there is a president who is committed to enforcing certain standards. And you see,
there was a question about the conduct of the officers in terms of their interface with the public.
Yes.
They have to be humble because you recognize how arrogance of power can cost you.
Yes.
But
it is not even just the consequence of that. It is the fact that we must acknowledge that we are public, or indeed, we are servants of the people. The trappings of power are just to enable us execute the task. If I go to a place and they extend a courtesy to me, and so prioritize me over another person, it's not because I'm exceptional. It's not because I'm 6 feet tall or I'm so handsome. You understand? It's only because it will help me carry out my work better than if it was not in place. So that is all that we are. We are public servants. That is indeed, when they ask you for your occupation on any form that you fill as a minister, the answer there is public servant. And that means then that you must acknowledge that you exercise whatever authority you exercise on behalf of the people.
Yes.
In fact, our constitution, the very first sentence is what? Sovereignty resides in the people. So we are exercising power on their behalf. For that reason, we must acknowledge them as our bosses. And that is what informs this. Forget about the consequences you suffer if you are rude. But the president says that, look, you need to be respectful. Even in times when you are provoked, you must exercise restraint and know how you carry yourself. So that is what it is about. So let there be no ambiguity. So
I think it has to be very clearly established that this code of conduct launched by the president does not in any way
prejudice
that
any action
process
exactly
for
it does
the
not
conduct of public
it does
officers
not
bill,
it does not
which is good.
Because I can assure you, and I think everyone here would agree that when that bill comes to Parliament for scrutiny and subsequent approval, some of the things in this one cannot find a space because it cannot be upheld. You can't hold it against any scrutiny. It won't stand any test in any law court because it won't constitute an offense. If you travel 300 times, it's not an offense. You understand me? So that is what we need to appreciate. And those things are important because then it guides. Because there are also people, especially those who are new to government, who don't know. There are some of them who are in the private sector, who had certain attitudes and things that the private sector would accept. But those things are not acceptable in government, precisely because we are serving the larger...
It is the effectiveness of the enforcement of the code of conduct, the details of this code of conduct, which is the issue.
Yeah, but President Mama
I mean, it's as you indicated, the detail is clear. And it ticks a number of boxes. It is the effective implementation of this code to ensure that all government appointees are whipped in line is where the concern is. How are you going to do that?
So for instance, those ones that are spelled out in law, for instance, if you receive a bribe, in fact, it's not even the president who needs to act. The police just need to arrest you and charge you. You understand me? However, if you travel 300 times a year, and the president gets to know, he will apply administrative sanctions. He will fire you or will apply some sanctions. That's why even those who fail to declare the assets are facing some sanctions. It's an administrative measure. It is not lawful. I don't think that if you again went to court and tested that, it will stand. But people understand that as president, he has the right, he reserves the authority to straighten our path if we veer off. And indeed, the president has a track record for dealing with persons who fall foul of it. And that's why I give you the 3R DC example. That he suffered consequences that people thought were harsh compared to the said offense.
I think the issue now is...
what do you call it? Victoria Hammer matter, for instance. He said that if he had not earned $1 million in life, he was not going to antagonize someone he perceived to be senior. That in itself cannot constitute an offense. Yes, but it is offensive to the extent that people then think that perhaps there's a certain clamor after acquiring wealth. The president took action. Indeed, within 24 hours of the breaking of that controversy, she was fired in the dead of night. So this is a president who has a track record. Indeed, this is also a man who has actually put his own appointees on trial. And in the last government, we didn't see that. You understand me? So there's every indication that President Mahama means business. And in this instance, some of the provisions are such that there's no other way around it than for the president to apply administrative sanctions.
Okay.
And he has indicated that he will do that. And the reason why the code also exists is to make it clear that if you fall foul, you'll be dealt with. For instance, the one on gifts is very clear.
In fact, that is what I'm going into. You see, this is a 66-page code of conduct. So if you wanted the full details of it, you can get on 3news.com or the presidency's website as well.
Yeah.
It's published. You can. It's been uploaded there, so you can download it. But we're going to put portions of it on the screen right now, just for the benefit of our viewers to follow every step of the way. Council, just quick.
Yeah, it's okay that Ofosu came in. It's fine. The last bit that I need to mention is that, you see, the reason we should quickly return to the matter of the bill is that, you remember in James' first term,
yes,
there
was similar.
Yes,
we actually began the process. Yes.
But when Akufo-Addo came, you see, he didn't work with it, and you heard Madam mentioned the fact that we want it made into law, right? Yes, because of that previous experience. So the previous one that you did, when Akufo-Addo came, he shunted it aside. You see, nothing was heard of it again.
He suffered electoral consequences. Let me intervene. I beg your pardon. You see, again, as I indicated, it's not everything that you can make a law out of. Yes, but there are consequences for behavior. For instance, again, the size of government. President Akufo-Addo had 126 ministers at some point.
Yes.
The moment President Mahama promised to do 60, he found favor with the electorate.
Yes.
You understand me? So there are consequences for not doing some things. The electorate itself will assess you and see that yes, whereas it is not unlawful, it is nonetheless unacceptable. So there is also that. But I agree entirely that we need to codify those aspects that we can defend on the basis of law. And let it be clear that if you do it, they are size. Indeed, I have also argued that many of them already exist in our laws. But perhaps it's because they are scattered, it is difficult to keep track of. So if you bring all of it together in one document, in respect of public office, then it clarifies the position for everybody.
Right.
Yes.
Council, thank you. Engineer, I'm going to come to you, but I just want us to run through the just briefs of this code of conduct. Let's put that on the screen. First off, prior approval needed for all foreign travel. Submit, report, and retire impress in 14 days. That's what you've touched on,
yes,
a number of times. And the gifts, this one will interrogate. Gifts above 20,000, declare surrender after office unless the president permits retention. There's a bit of detail in that, but no holding of the stakes in firms linked to your ministry or insider dealings. Let's move on to the next. And then it says no government appointee cannot award or can award contracts to themselves, family, or close friends. I mean, you would expect that. I mean, just as Kwachofosu says, some things shouldn't be happening, but because it's been happening, it has to be codified so that when you violate it, you will suffer the consequence. No recommendation of relatives or friends for government positions. Avoid actions that appear biased or self-serving. Breaches that attract public, if you breach these sanctions, there's public apologies, that's number 1. Reprimand, 2. Suspension, 3. Resignation and termination. Attempt to buy state assets, if you do so, immediate dismissal. And also, if the miscompliance for the deadline for asset declaration that we have discussed, the consequences apply regardless of the position or seniority as well. On the matter of the gifts, this is on page 28 of the Code of Conduct that was launched by the President on Monday. It says, the minister must submit any gift received in Ghana or from overseas to the Secretary to Cabinet for appropriate display. Where the minister wishes to retain gifts received, he may do so only if the estimated value does not exceed 20,000. What exactly went into the thinking of this particular one, Mr. Kotiufosu? Because
Well,
20,000 to many, it's a very high ratio.
No, first of all, we need to understand that the president is not saying that if you receive cash of 20,000. He says if you receive a gift of a value above 20,000. And you see, we need to set realistic standards.
But the gift can come in the form of cash, is it not?
Well, but it is not meant to imply that if you bring money, then it's acceptable. You understand the point? The thing is that we live in a certain society. We have a certain cultural setting. I go to the constituency and you wake up in the morning and people are there with tubers of yam and plantain and cassava. Some even bring goats and chicken. They say, well, the MP is in town, so let's go and say hello to him. You understand me? Alfred, that is unlikely to sway you to act a certain way. You understand the point I'm making? Everybody listening, the kind of people who become MPs and ministers ordinarily in their normal life are unlikely to be swayed by items of a certain value. As you sit here, I don't think that an item of a certain value can necessarily get you to be biased in the way that you moderate this program. If you yourself are not minded to be biased. But there certainly is a certain value of item that can get you thinking about being biased. So the president estimates that anything below 20,000 is most unlikely to sway you to act a certain way. You see, the reason that is done is so that we are not inundated with more than we can chew. So the standard should be realistic, it should be acceptable, and it should be deemed to be reasonable. So that is what informs the amount. And if you receive any gift item, someone can bring you perfume, they can bring you maybe a flower vase, they can bring you some maybe a crystal gift or something of a certain value. But the value is such that it should not have the likelihood of impairing your judgment in the performance of your duty. So that is what has gone into it. Yes.
But we're living, because you talk about the society we live in, I still go back to the society we're living. We're living in a society where you have the poor and marginally poor very high.
That is true.
And so this code of conduct is supposed to send a certain signal that you're committed to fighting corruption in the public sector. So if you put a threshold of 20,000 in the mind of someone that the minister or any government appointee can receive a gift 20,000 or below, you don't expect that the person who is watching us right now would also understand that it is okay to receive this gift of this value. Some have put the analysis to it that I can, if I want to give you 100,000, I could give you a gift under 20,000 in 5 tranches and still achieve that objective because your threshold says 20,000 or below.
No, Alfred, you see, I mean, theoretically speaking, you can even give me a gift of 10 million Ghana cedis, which will not be discovered and it will never become an issue. So really, you can never have a perfect foolproof situation, but you should have standards that are easy to verify and easy to live with. If, for instance, a minister is to award a certain construction contract worth $100 million, I'm not sure that if you brought him 20,000 cedis, that is what will sway him to give you that level of contract. But we have to start from some point. And the thresholds we set must be reasonable. There are other jurisdictions where it is $50, it is $20, but they have even more robust mechanisms of checking whether this has happened or not. So it is a start. I respect the sentiments about the society we live in vis-a-vis commentary on the amounts. But again, the code is for people holding certain offices. And we know the stuff that those people are made of and what is likely to influence them. I think that it is a start. Already, mind you, as I've said before, bribery is an offense. If you're a public official and you take something to influence your decision one way or the other, you are liable for prosecution. So that already exists in our law. But this one is designed to cover the aspects that our law does not deal with. It is not necessarily a bribe. The person may not want anything from you. It may only be setting you up for future use, if I were to put it that way. Right. So he starts to give you gifts to court your, what do you call it, friendship. And then when he needs you to do something, because of what he has done for you in the past, it is difficult for you to say no when you must. So that is what this is intended to address. So that you know that you are not allowed to build a certain relationship with people beyond a certain point that can compromise you. And the president has made it clear that if you receive such an item, make sure that you declare it and then hand it over to the state. If you do not and it is found out, then sanctions will apply to you. So that is what this is intended to achieve.
That if it is found out.
But as I said, I can give you a gift of 10 million. Nobody will find out. And you will never be accused of anything. Indeed, people commit all manner of crimes that are not detected. But once you are detected, the law deals with those things that are detected, not so. And also, the president has said that there is a mechanism to report. There is a mechanism to report acts like this. So the public is allowed anonymously. And very soon the portal will be up. The public is allowed anonymously to report suspicion of such conduct. To the extent that you provide a credible lead, it will be followed and looked into. And if it is found that indeed there is basis for what you are saying, then it will be looked into. And Martin has experience with oral. There are people who came to bring, there are people who brought information that has proven useful. Because of that, as I speak, there are 65 people who have either been interrogated or given bail under oral. Every single one of the 280 cases that oral submitted is under investigation. Every single one of them. And the investigators determine that, okay, some of the cases you can overlook because it really does not constitute matter. But there are some that indeed are weighty enough to warrant further scrutiny. So the same principle will apply. There will be a portal. The people at the back end, you won't know. When you are sending it, they won't even know who it is from. But it is the information that we deal with. Of course, we are not going to pick up frivolous information and run with it. But if it contains substance, it will be looked. I think that this is a mechanism that begins a certain process to sanitize public conduct, especially for those who are in public office. And I think that we should support it. Eventually, we can always improve upon it to achieve a system that is coming to that.
If you gauge public sentiments about some of the detail, is it one you would consider and possibly subject to some review?
Absolutely.
And amendment?
As Martin said, at the time that the Constitution was being drafted, public scrutiny was not this intense. There was even not any other outlet apart from state media to air your views on anything. There was a high risk that if you went to air your views, you may end up somewhere that you don't want. So people got away with, if you like, laws that were lax. But if you were doing the same thing today, the sort of scrutiny that you receive is entirely different, and therefore you are compelled to act differently. So as we grow, new areas may emerge. There are things that we may not even consider offensive today that may be considered offensive going forward. And society has to evolve. That's why I say that we need to move from one step to the other. If we show that level of consistency, we will get to a point where corruption becomes truly a very high-risk activity, as it is in many other places. Why? In South Korea, they've had to impeach 2 presidents in the space of, 2-3 years? For reasons that we may consider flimsy here. But for them, it is a big deal. There are places where if you are caught engaged in anything remotely close to corruption, people commit suicide. Because society judges them a certain way. We have not got to that place yet, but we will get there with consistency and doing some of these things that President Mahama has started doing. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. President.
Well, so thank you. But for me, I think that the Code of Conduct was one of the best when you look at the 25 promises. It was exact, the thing that has to be done. And again, here is where you see a reset that is not benchmarking on what is being in the past. And I would live with the fact, the only thing I would have wished the president would have talked about the fact that the bill would come. But I think it's because it will take a while for you to be able to take all of these things. But there are some specific things that, again, with a gift, you should bear in mind that we live within a culture where gifts are done. And I think I would live with how are you going to break a gift into multiple 20s. It's not possible. Because if there's a vase, what are you going to bring it and I'll come and put it back together? So I think that the thing we need to be looking at now is how are we going to enforce all of this? That the enforcement is the thing that is going to be important. And then also the transparency around it, like Felix has told us about the chair MP. I'm sure a lot of people in office did not know that he was dismissed because of that. So one of the things that would let consequence really become consequence is people getting to know that what they have done would be exposed. And so they are not just told to just slide aside, and then things go on. It is really, really going to be important if we're going to get some reports out of this code of conduct to be able to tell us that what are the things, who has done what, and how that is going to go. That's going to be important. But as we talk about that, I just got a message from the former Director of Audit at the Judicial Service. So he says that it's falsehood that the former justice didn't file his asset declaration, but was told to file later by Shraj. He said he filed it 5 days before he went to the vetting. and he personally filed it for him as director of audit. And
but the deadline had elapsed long.
No. So let me read what he then said, because he said Level and all of that. He said what happened was Mensah Thompson had filed a petition as charged about 2 weeks before before he could go for vetting, and he filed it about 10 days after. So at the time Shraj inquired from the Auditor General, he had filed it, so the Auditor General himself cleared him, and at the vetting, when Mutaka questioned him, he answered that he had filed it before coming, and that was the truth. So this again is coming from
no, that's not complete. That's not complete. That's not. There were other parts they were talking about every 4 years, and this is no. That's not complete.
That's not. Are you? So I'm sure Kwame is listening.
The law says after every 4 years.
Yes.
So the argument was that he hadn't been doing that.
I'm sure he had it, and I was the only person he could come back to. That's why he came back. So for me, I think that on this issue of the code of conduct, it is so apt, and if you look through the whole document, their intentionality and some of the things that have been looked at are really important. And I'm hoping, again, Martin talks about getting access to that bill, and that the document, the law that we're going to come up with would capture a lot of the things, because some of the, we've lived with a lot of things in the past, and it's really caused a lot of damage to us. And a lot of them, there is the tendency to be able to deal with them. My only caution in this country is that you know what we do, and that's what the political class do. Anytime you complain about anything, they will enact a law, a legislation, or a regulation, and they will decide not to do it. Let me give you a typical example. Act 995. Act 995 talks about the fact that when anybody goes to commit a crime, whether a foreigner, you are prosecuted. You can't know what the Interior Minister is doing. Let me give you another example. Tracking of excavators. Minerals Commission done a great job with Ghanaian academics. They have set a tracking up. There's a law in place that says all equipment could be tracked. You know why the last government did not do? If they had done it, it would be tracking all the excavators. It would be stopping them from doing it. So what did they do? They brought the LI in place. There's an LI to track. There's even fee fixing. When you ask it, they'll tell you they've done that. So the thing that we need to do with this particular one, and it's for all of us as citizens whose sovereignty resides in, to ensure that the great step that President Mahama is taking, we are able to police it, and we should be getting some reports to make sure that this thing is happening. And then we also, when this portal is opened, let's go ahead and be able to put names out, put the names. And you should, Felix, you should allow for those of us who want to put our names on it.
Well,
so it's not only anonymous. Me, I would name them and there are a lot of them that I'm beginning to see already. As I'm reading this, and I'm going to be putting their names out, so that we will find it, and so that again, as Ghanaians, yes, so when you put the information, bring it out. One of the reasons why a lot of this mobile fraud and electronic fraud, bank fraud persists. Some of us, when we are defrauded, we don't even want to go forward and go and report it and all of that, so that we can be. So I am urging all of us that in this particular situation, the president has taken the first step. As citizens, let's make sure we will take this document. And I agree, we should break it down, then take it to with Susan, take it to our schools and teach it to all the kids, so they know this is what they are supposed to do. So like the young pioneer days, when your father even comes and he comes to do something and it's wrong, the child will go and do the report. We need to get back into that particular point. So I would urge all of us to make sure we take this particular document and make it a living document and work with it. There's an invitation from the president. Let us take the invitation from the president and let's deal with it.
Well, there was a call by Professor Stephen Kwekwasari that beyond oral Operation Recover All Loot, there has to be OPAL as well, Operation Prevent All Loot,
of course.
As to whether this is going to be effective
this is one of the ways. Now, as I have said, there are sufficient laws, in my view, to prevent this. What has happened is people don't respect them. Okay. And then when they don't respect them, no action is taken. That is what has actually goaded people want to continue to behave that way. But I don't think that the problem we have is an inadequacy of laws. Of course, where there needs to be improvement, we can do so. And that is one of the gaps that this code of conduct is intended to plug. That's what it is about. Yes. So we are committed to preventing it.
And in fact, I indicated it's a 66-page document. It's on the presidency's website. Also, you can find it on 3news.com. and the highlights we put out there as well for our viewers and our listeners to follow every step of the way for this conversation. But also, I don't just rounding up on this because you touched on it briefly. Let's round up on this one.
I was just looking at something, just two small issues. The ministerial office is expected to be a full-time occupation, which the minister.
That is true.
And so you are an MP, you are a minister, you are paid as a minister. But, you know, I think in the previous year, we found people who got double salaries along the line. What I want to know is, have they closed those loopholes so that we don't have it? I don't know what happened to them. People, I think, just returned the monies or I don't know.
That's why I speak about knowledge or the lack of it. You see, there are certain rules, but there's a certain gap where you don't even know. You are there, the controller account general is the one that pays you. So you'll be there and you see a transfer, say salary. You are, at the same time, you are an MP, and so Parliament pays that one. They say salary. So it is not unusual for somebody to assume that if I'm working as an MP and Parliament pays me, I have earned it. If I'm working as a minister and the controller has paid me, I have earned it. But there is a regulation that doesn't allow you to take two salaries. But the institutions have to be up and running. Let me give you a clear example.
So my thing is that
a final example.
We have gotten the experience.
A final example.
So where we've learned the lesson, what have we done to ensure that it doesn't happen again?
Institutions must work. For instance, you know, I used to be special aid for President Mahama just before we won power. So I was paid by the state for it. So my tenure was to have ended on 6th January 2025 because it was from 2013 to the time that he was former president. I noticed in January, or at the end of January, that I had been paid my full salary. If I even were going to pay, it was just the first 7 days of January that I should have. But they paid me my full salary. So I saw it. Then I returned it. I went to pay it back in the Bank of Ghana. I got a receipt and took it to them that there is a problem. But they themselves will have system that block this.
Exactly.
The moment January is passed. Because it is not everybody who will be minded to return. There are some who may not even notice.
They will not notice.
And then it builds up. And then, for instance, there is a law that also says that you cannot, if you are an MP, for instance, Parliament either pays you rent allowance, or if you're a minister, you are given a bungalow. You cannot take both. Yeah. There are people who unknowingly take both, assuming that they are entitled to it and do it. And then later you find out that it was not the case. But nobody takes the trouble to check these things and ensure that it doesn't happen in the first place. Why should controller continue to pay somebody who is not working? That is not acceptable.
So that's
in this day and age where you can have systems and algorithms and software that can block it. The moment the dates you are supposed to leave office occurs, automatically it ceases. Understand? So there are weaknesses in our system.
So it's all good and things to do this, but we must also put a system in place that prevents people. Yes, like you said, some people may not even notice. Yeah. You understand that? In the past months they have paid me some extra monies. So it's all well and good to say the things, but we must ensure that we put systems into place also. I was telling Martin something and he was laughing. I said, yes, the code of conduct is good. Maybe we don't talk about sexual conduct. People line up with goats and they say, what if I bring you my daughter? What if I bring you my daughter? She's not 20,000 worth. She's more than 20. But I bring you her. Exactly my point. You said, is that a crime already? Is that a crime? No, it's not a crime.
You are soliciting sex.
Soliciting. No. But you see, we haven't.
What is the whole
you got your daughter to be married? It is not unlawful.
You see? It's a gift. But it's a gift.
I don't think you want this guy. Generally, if you solicit a favor,
very salient point.
If you solicit a favor in return for performing your official, why is it only a daughter? It could be a son. It could be a son.
Oh no, I was coming to that. I was coming to that it could be a son. But I'm very much into espionage novels and things like that. They are sex traps. You understand? Right. They are sex traps. So some of these things we have to take note of them. Somebody may think it's frivolous and then maybe but it is an important one because it is not just about gifts in terms of monetary gifts or in terms of physical gifts. There are certain gifts that are intangible and yet there are gifts that influence and cause trouble. Because like I said, okay, maybe not, but somebody can present herself in such a way that you fall into that trap, and you'll be doing things in your office that need not be done, which are corrupt. You understand? Right. So I'm saying that we must avert our something. Look, I mean, I know that in the US, for instance, they have ethics commissions. They are usually ad hoc ethics commissions where a president comes in and he puts in an ethics commission who advises him on certain ethical things, especially now that we have emerging things, AI, you know, where technology and things are running way in front of laws and things like that. And they look at the ethical implications of certain actions, and they look at the ethical implications of things that are done by the government. You understand? Like you said, it is not everything that the law covers, but there are so many things that ethics will cover. And so you need to have maybe that voice who are looking at some of the decisions that a government will take and say, no, if we take this thing, it's not ethical. You understand? And it will affect the people. I think that these are some of the things as we are growing, we must be able to have. I mean, an ethics commission looking at, look, emerging diseases, there's a pandemic, and what are the things that we should do that are ethical and not ethical, you understand? Right. That are to the welfare of our people. So for me, yes, it is good that this has come. We hope that we will grow, you know, in it. We would look at different aspects of it in terms of our lifestyle and the people that we are, and make sure that we put in measures so that the you know, the corruption that we do not want in our society, the moral degradation that we are getting, you know, we pick ourselves up.
Right. Thank you very much. There are quite a number of your messages on Instagram, on Facebook, on X as well, YouTube. I acknowledge all of them. And before I get into the messages, so we'll go into the 120 days very quickly. See, the president received some commendation. And in fact, across the table, I think the signal is that this code of conduct is a step in the right direction. But the two vehicles that were gifted to him that he returned, in fact he donated to the state pool. Our concern is that the avenue should not even be created for companies or individuals to even give the president a gift, for him to receive it and then now donate it. That window or that door must not exist at all for the president to be receiving gifts and donating it to the poor. What do you say to that?
Well, I do not entirely see a problem with that narrative. It is not necessarily wrong. The point also is that there is a certain reality that we must face. The president travels, he goes to events, and the organizers and other people give him token gifts to mark the event. Understand me? So it is about what you do in the instance. So in the particular case of this, there are two companies that have started the marketing of EV vehicles, that vehicles that don't use fossil fuel, they use batteries, which is part of the way that we are transitioning from the use of fossil fuels to green energy in order to safeguard our environment. Now, they perceive that if a high-profile personality is associated with that movement, it may help promote the idea of reverting to. So they thought that, okay, the president, in fact, they don't come any more high profile than the president.
I see.
So let us give him these things to draw attention to the existence of this product. So it was in that spirit that it was sent. But the president certainly doesn't need those vehicles. He is provided for by the state. And it's not something that he is going to use. So immediately, he declared them and handed it over the state. Indeed, the rule is that if you happen to have a gift above a certain threshold, you hand it over to the state. And this is law. This is something that happens across the world. In other places, the threshold is lower. There are places where you can receive something above 5,000 and keep. Indeed, there are presidents who hand over all manner of mementos that they received. It is commemoratory in many cases. It's not something that they really need, and it's certainly not going to influence their decision one way or the other. Again, some have said that, okay, so these companies, they may come and bid for government contracts. It may be true, but government contracts and procurement are guided by a certain law. They have to meet that standard before they are awarded. If they don't meet that standard, it can land you in court, as Martin would know. There's a whole procurement law. And indeed, the procurement law says that except in extreme circumstances, which is clearly catered for by the law, all public procurement must be done through competitive tendering. So it doesn't matter how many vehicles you bring to the president. If the law is adhered to, there's no opportunity for anybody to influence anything. That is why systems and processes are important. But again, on the day that the code of conduct was being launched, it was important that an example is set on what can. In fact, the president could have received the vehicles quietly. Nobody would have known that he has received any vehicles. But he declared it. Oh, people would know. But as I've said here, there are many things that happen that people never get to hear.
And so it was given privately.
Oh, but it was not, no. But the gifts were brought privately. They were not brought publicly, yes. They went to pay a courtesy call on him, inform him that they've started bringing in environmentally friendly vehicles as part of the effort for us to safeguard the environment.
Electric vehicles.
And that these are electric vehicles that they want to promote as one of the ways to help government efforts to transition to green energy. And therefore, given his personality, if he was associated with that kind of movement, it was going to create public awareness. That's all that it was. The president said, no, I can't keep the gifts. But I understand the concept behind it, the idea that you want to create awareness, which is important because if we transition from using fossil fuels, it's great for our environment. But he was never.
This is your transition thing. You know what we are doing currently? These electric vehicles are all fueled by thermal plants. Currently,
it's another argument. It's another argument.
So we need to be careful in this whole transition.
It's another conversation.
When people are selling these things to us.
It's another conversation that we can have. It's another conversation that I know that you are a scientist. Just like myself. So you understand it. But the point is that this is all that it was. The president said, okay, I understand the idea behind this. In fact, I would encourage people to move towards green energy. But these are not things I'm going to keep. So at a symbolic ceremony where I had the pleasure of representing him, I handed over to the chief of staff who has put it in the state pool. So that if you have a sense of they can use it. It's for the state, it's not for the president. So there's really no influence. But again, it doesn't mean that those two companies are going to waltz into any government contract without going through proper scrutiny. If that happens, there are consequences for it. And people will suffer those consequences if they violate any. So there's enough safeguard in my view to guard against it. That is what it is. So it means that me too, if I get a gift beyond a certain threshold, I must surrender it. Otherwise, if I'm found out, I'm in a lot of trouble. Yes.
So Richard Kumado says that the vehicle gift to the presidency, it should be to the presidency and not to the president.
Yes.
I think that's the distinction that
well, again, even the presidency cannot keep it. You give it to the state, and it's clear the chief of staff's office must be notified, or there's an advisor on anti-corruption. Who will be notified, and then the appropriate steps will be taken.
Quite a number of them. Kakasuma says, we know that the presidential lodge at Peduasi was a gift from the contractors of Temahaba to President Kwame Nkrumah, who in turn gifted it to Ghana. So, and this one here also.
Well, the National Theatre was a gift from the Chinese government.
Yes.
And we've used it. It doesn't mean that.
During Kwame Nkrumah's time, there was the Ghana Education Trust Fund, etc. There were contractors who were asked
donated
to give 10%. There was a fund. You give 10%, then they used to build schools, etc. So governments from independence.
The African Institute of Governance.
The most important is that they should not be personalized.
Yes.
Right. If somebody gives Ghana a gift, why not?
Okay.
However,
let me read them. I have to move because Mr. Kochofo will have to leave us at some point. The Africa Institute of Governance and Security, Dr. Pagre Bachidankwa, also written an article, says John Mahama's push for transparency must be praised and also lauded as well. This one here says,
the MPP guy.
Who is that?
Tell lawyer Martin Pebu that Article 286 of the 1992 Constitution says, so you quote it there. I think that is a matter that we went on and moved on. It says, take note of the conjunction or and the phrase as the case may be. These applications leave a lacuna for which an act has been promulgated to clarify. So it makes the argument that John Mahama was not running against the Constitution at all.
Who is that?
Is
that a lawyer?
Yes.
So I think the substance is that the act provides more detail and clarity than the Constitution. There was in the stairs.
Yeah, in trouble.
Yes. It said, there's another one. It says, yes, I admit in the hierarchy of laws, the Constitution is the highest compared to the Act. However, the constitutional provision itself fails to provide a sanction for non-compliance. So if the Act in fleshing out the constitutional provision provides a sanction for non-compliance, then without the Supreme Court striking down the Act, the President can't assume the role of the Supreme Court to strike down the Act and elect to comply with the Constitution, which does not provide an express sanction. The best way forward is to go to the Supreme Court to strike down the inconsistent provision of the Act, and he says he trusts Martin Kpebu to do so. Dr. Victor Bampo of the National Health Insurance Authority says yes, he's watching, and he's the first in the series of birthday messages for you as well. So yes, quite a number of them.
Yes, if you were the very first on this program.
No, I'm talking about the
the messages.
Yes, yes, that also.
Some have told about the party. Let me also indicate that Rama actually has outlawed parties.
Yeah, please don't do it.
So that's
yes.
Don't do it.
He says you can do parties.
I remember the Samuel Uku party. The lavish one, please don't.
You can't do birthday.
You can't do it. Again, it is not unlawful. If we did a birthday party, it's not illegal. Nobody will arrest you, but the president will clamp down.
Is it in the code of conduct?
Why is it? It is not there. It
depends on the party. If you brought a cake here,
yesterday my staff at the presidency gave me a cake. That is not a party. That is a simple gift to
no, that's a party. What's a party?
No, but you know what you are talking about.
Yeah, so that's kind of party.
If you get a talk, nobody will raise a difference.
So the president says appointees should not organize birthday parties or any other
forms of parties.
Lavish parties. I see. This is what the president said about the fight against corruption during the account of his 120 days. That sets us the motion into the 120 days conversation. Take a look at this.
A cornerstone of our commitment to good governance and accountability is tackling corruption and eliminating waste. I promise to initiate inquiries and forensic audits into several critical matters of public interest. This war against corruption continues unabated. The Minister for Health is reviewing the Auditor General's report on the COVID-19 expenditures. After the review, the appropriate actions will be taken. The Sputnik V scandal is under investigation. The Minister for Finance has launched an inquiry into the collapse of indigenous banks and financial institutions. And make no mistakes, facts will be unearthed, culprits will be punished, and lessons will be learned. The Minister for Energy and Green Transition has commenced investigations into the PDS scandal. Deloitte and Touche is conducting an independent audit of the National Cathedral project. I expect their report by the end of this month. A number of officials have been invited and questioned concerning the 13th African Games. On April 30th, 2025, the Attorney General filed 11 charges against a former National Signals Bureau Director General and others for various offenses. Charges will also be filed in the Accra SkyTrain and the National Service Ghost Name scandals. The Office of the Presidential Advisor on Corruption will continue to receive complaints and reports regarding graft for onward transmission to the Attorney General, building on the success of the oral mechanism, which received over 2,000 complaints in just a few weeks. As promised, my commitment to fighting corruption is not limited to recovering loot from past appointees. We will also ensure that our own appointees serve Ghanaians responsibly and are held to the highest standards of accountability.
Well, that's the president. Gentlemen, yes, yes, welcome back. It's 8 minutes to the top of the hour, 9 o'clock. That's the president on corruption. And also he talks about the taxes that have been scrapped all within the 120 days, and the COVID-19 levy is what is outstanding. Yes. It says by end of year that's going to be done. How far-reaching have the processes been in getting COVID-19 off our books?
What is this? That COVID-19 is a VAT. It's a VAT. It's only 1%, but it's a VAT. It's a value-added tax. Now, as part of the IMF arrangements, we're committed to reforming the tax system. the VAT system as it exists now is so lopsided. Depending on where you are, you could be paying far more than others. It's inequitable, it's unfair. Yes. So the IMF, in conjunction with the Finance Ministry, have said that, look, we need to carry out an entire overhaul of the VAT regime to make it simpler, bring more clarity. But you cannot touch one and leave the rest. Yeah. So some work has to go in. So by the time that the next budget process is around November, the COVID levy will go, as the Finance Minister indicated in his. So the processes are currently ongoing. And mind you, the IMF program is also binding on the government. So you cannot say that because one party did it, I can pull out. The IMF doesn't deal with parties; they deal with governments. And for that reason, we are. But the commitment remains. The very fact that we've abolished 3 of them gives indication of our commitment to stick to the promise. So by and large, we've done what we promised, and by November, the COVID levy will go. Yes.
I see, right. And then also that leads us into the other aspect of the 120-day social contract. The president, in his verdict, said generally or largely fulfilled the promises within. We counted 26, but there are more than.
No, it's actually, let me clarify. Yeah, yes, there was some confusion. Lend me your document. The problem arose in the numbering of the promises. Right. I think when they got to page 22, the graphic designer who did our manifesto, when he got to page number 22, no, 21, he skipped to 23. Instead of, so then he created a impression that there were 20, but it's actually 25.
25,
right. Yes. So when you count them individually, it's 25. But
okay.
There was a small problem.
23.
But the one on the website now is corrected to 25.
It's 25, yes. It's 25. Okay. There was one that they also skipped involving the law on salvage vehicles. Okay, it was a typo in the manifesto. That's what.
Right.
Okay, so they've corrected this.
It's been corrected. You see, it's been corrected.
Okay. So yes. That's fair. Let's hear the president on the taxes that have been scrubbed. He also gave that account during his 120-day social contract address to the nation. Take a look.
An amendment of the Public Procurement Act has also been passed, making the issuance of a commitment certificate by the Minister for Finance a prerequisite for all procurements funded by the central government. Scrapping draconian taxes to alleviate hardship and ease the high cost of doing business. I promise to scrap the e-levy, the COVID levy, the 10% levy on bet winnings, and the emissions levy within my first 90 days in office. These tax expenditure measures were central to our 2025 budget statement. On April 2nd, 2025, I signed several bills into law, including the Electronic Transfer Levy e-levy repeal bill 2025, the emissions levy repeal bill, and the betting tax. We have delivered on 3 of these 4 specific tax repeals as promised.
So that's the president's account there, and we're going to put on the screen the 25 that Mr. Kwachofosu you referenced, and that's going to guide the next phase of this discussion. Hold a national economic dialogue to assess the true state of the economy and prepare a homegrown fiscal consolidation program for the budget. That has been done. Yes. Within the first 90 days, abolish the following taxes. Let's flip to the next. This is what we just talked about. Review taxes and levies on vehicles and equipment imported for industrial and agricultural purposes within the first 90 days. This has not been done.
In fact, it is something that is being done. It is a law. It is only the finance minister that can go to parliament with a law to do the reduction, because the law does not give the president the power to do it administratively. Okay. So that has been done. The moment parliament resumes, it is going to be tabled and it will be done. Yes. So there are some of them whose full implementation involves other government organs, and you don't necessarily control their timetable. So that is what has created the hindrance.
So you looking at somebody with, you're making a promise, and again, so you see, our president is a president who has been in office before, so he knows the workings of all of this. So when you're doing a 120-day, you need to be a bit specific, because you know the nuances of the way Parliament works. So for me, those are some of the when I start talking about it, you look at, because you definitely would know that you could not have done that within 120 days, but you put it into the 120 days. And again, this issue on the COVID levy, I'm hearing we knew in an IMF. Yes. The president was very specific about the 4 things. And for me, the tax area was a great one. But maybe somebody would say 75%. If you went to Legon, might be an A. If you went to KNUST, if you went to KNUST, definitely not be an A.
Is it a swipe at
Well, anyway, so then that leads us to the next. I mean, that's convene a national consultative conference on education to build consensus on sector improvement. This was publicized, so we know it's been done.
Yeah, that's been done, and a lot of work has gone into that. With that, by the end of this month, you should have the report. They've spoken to 20,000 people from different walks of life on what their views are on the reforms that should go on education. So the report will be put together and come. Now let me say, even the first one, the one on the national economic dialogue, there are many who often dismiss these dialogues as just talk shops and all that. Indeed, significant things have emanated from that. Let me tell you, out of the dialogue, it is in our budget, and we've committed to doing so firmly, that going forward, every year we will target a surplus of 1.5% of GDP. The last time I was here, we discussed the huge budget deficit that we inherited. And the consensus at the dialogue is that we need to have surpluses going forward, so 1.5. We have also said that now a debt ceiling will be set, that our debt to GDP ratio by 2034 should not exceed 45% of GDP. That is a direct product of the dialogue, and it's in our budget. We've also spoken about a fiscal responsibility council to vet the way that government manages its deficits. The amendment to the Public Procurement Act, which was in the insert that you played, has also found expression, and it was a direct product of the national economic dialogue. Indeed, in the past, it was only ministers who bore the brunt where there were procurement breaches. Now it says that people at the procurement authority who actually approve the procurements are also going to be held liable for any breaches together with the minister. So it then means that people at the procurement authority are going to be more stringent in the enforcement of the procurement rule. So those four, at the very least, give evidence of how useful the outcomes of the national economic dialogue have been.
So again, Alfred, briefly. Again, so you see, when Felix talks now about it, then you look at the promise that have been made, and there are measurable KPIs in it. But when you just leave it at convene, when you leave it at launch, so I'm hoping that, Felix, in doing your work in terms of reporting it, you tease it down and the outcome. So
it's in the statement that the president read. If you listen carefully, so it's a little bit. Maybe in fact the statement has actually been put out on the presidency's website. So when you download, you see that the measurable KPIs are in there. Every promise has specific work. If you give me the time, I can go through all of it.
In fact, I'm very mindful of the time as well, because some of them you have launched. So beyond the 120 days, actualizing the promise beyond the launch.
Of course. So for instance, this no academic fees policy.
Yes, that's
of course. The intendment was that the academic year starts in August, September. That's the natural order of things. But COVID created a bit of a problem. So I think they went to school this in January or February, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, January.
At that time, we had not even read a budget, and so you couldn't even have money to appropriate. Once the budget was read, money was made available. So all those who have paid their fees from the time that school reopened are going to get it refunded. But we need a structured way of doing it, so that people do not come and deny that they receive money. You know, the Students' Loan Trust Fund has a system for disbursing these things. So it is free money. It's not a loan that we are giving them.
Right.
In fact, it is 454 million Ghana cedis, covering 156,000, because the average admission fee is around 3,000 cedis per student. So we've asked that every student, after registering with the university, should also register on the portal, so that they have the details. It will be sent directly to their accounts.
Yes.
That is for those who have already paid. It will be refunded.
So the refund.
Yes.
Has the portal been created?
The portal has been created. It was launched 3 weeks ago. And so the moment you register and your account details can be verified, it will be sent to you, because the money is coming from that fund to the Student Loan Trust Fund. Indeed, it was in the appropriations bill that we passed before we used.
So the institutions that have their students benefiting from this intervention is public tertiary institutions?
Public tertiary institutions. I must clarify. Public tertiary institutions for now. Maybe in future you can think about adding or subventing.
So that's university, public
universities,
colleges
of education, technical university, and then the nursing training institutions or any other tertiary institution of analogous nature.
I see. Kofi Asari of African Education Watch says the last time they checked, over 5,000 students have already registered on the portal.
So it will, after when we receive your details, yes.
Okay, but this 458 million, that's every year.
Yeah, no, it's on needs based. Indeed, it did not come out of a vacuum. Indeed, there's a document here that I can show you. The National Council on Tertiary Education, they have the data. So every year they have data on how many students are in public tertiary institutions or even private tertiary institutions. So they supplied the Ministry of Education with the data. It will be cross-checked against, of course, what the universities also submit, because you need to be sure that, of course, I'm not accusing anybody of any wrongdoing, but in this area of ghost names, you have to be sure. And that is why the portal has been created, so that you don't just get a list from the university and then you start paying, not knowing who you are paying to. Yes. So the person must be identifiable. When you fill your credentials into the portal, there is some information that is verifiable, and therefore you can use it to track who has got what. That's why that system has been put in place to check any leakages.
I see. That was leading me to a question about, let's say, all things being equal.
Yes.
We're dealing with the 458 million on a yearly basis. All things being equal.
No, it depends on enrollment could be high.
That's what I'm saying.
The record shows that enrollment goes up every year.
Every year. Yes. But then just for the analysis, just to say, for the benefit of today, if we're dealing with 458 million every year, by 2028, you would have paid 5 tranches, because the first one you are paying now are students who were admitted last year.
Yes.
Right?
No, this year.
Yes, so that's the 2024-2025 academic year, the first years.
Yes, it's for first years, I must stress, yes.
Yes. So if you're going to have to spend over $2 billion,
which is still in those 4 years, it will be lower than what we spend on FSHS for a year. Because indeed the argument is this, that people at SHS level cannot pay 800 cedis to 1,500 cedis. It is for borders. So if people cannot pay for that, are they expected to be able to pay 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 at university level? So it makes perfect sense. But the numbers invariably are smaller at tertiary level, so it's more manageable. In fact, all the 4-year calculation that you've done, assuming that everything remains the same over the 4-year period, is less than what we spend on FSHS a year.
There's a discriminatory nature of this. We've accused the free SHS that free SHS was discriminatory, because you see, again, bear in mind that it's all of us our money that we're using. So why is it that we're going to say that for the Ghanaian who is unable to get into public university, that person does not benefit from it? So the focus should be on the student, not necessarily where you are. So for us, you're going into a course that is accredited. If we decide that this is the way we are going to go, then then we need to make sure it's the student that is benefiting. Because you see, what we've done with free SHS, as good as I think for me it's one of the most audacious policies that as a country we have done. What we've done is that we've killed all private schools. But these are partners. These are partners and these private schools are the ones you find in the rural communities as well. But these have been partners in education. So as we do this as well, I'm hoping that we'll be a learning country and focus this thing on the student. So you're a Ghanaian student. You've qualified. You are in a course that is accredited by the university. We can identify you by your Ghana card and link that to your qualification and all of that, so that this one goes to the students rather than goes to the public university. So I think we need to start looking at that.
It is a start. You also have to bear in mind the limitations on resources, so that you don't do from the start what will create difficulty for you. So I'm sure that as time goes on, a way will be found to rope people in. Also, let us not forget that there are people who opt for specific institutions because of what they seek to achieve, and they have the means to do so. So at least you must have a certain benchmark from the beginning.
So make it means tested, not
of course, not
everybody giving it.
Again, all that will come in. But at the very least, it covers as many people as possible.
There was a question from a former Director General of the GES talking about a needs-based targeting.
I agree entirely with that.
So that you don't do the wholesale, because that was one of the issues with the free.
I agree entirely with that, but it is only a beginning, as I've indicated, and it will be streamlined as it goes on. Yes. But this is certainly something that brings huge relief, because I am an MP and I know the frustrations that people go through, the pressure that we come under when school reopens, for people who genuinely need this thing to.
So quick one on this.
On the free,
I know you wanted to do just a quick comment. Yes, quick one. Yes, lawyer.
Okay.
Lawyer, yes, quick one.
I don't have much to say on this. I think I've already said that it's laudable. It's laudable. It's one of the best for me, because the key thing we cannot overemphasize is that public this in office is actually overpaid in Ghana if you look at it. So, all right, if you look at the opportunities, the perks, and everything.
That is actually underpaid. That's what that
I mean, depending on the political class.
Depending on where you start.
Yeah, the political class, right? You don't need to be corrupt. If you look at the way the contractors will line up and say thank you, there's a lot of money.
I mean, let's not does not allow that.
But I mean, come on, this code will not get far in terms of that. So I'm speaking from a practical point, right? Let's be very, very honest about this topic. There's a lot of money to be made when you enter political office, right? From the thank yous. I'm not talking about the corrupt ones, no. But a thank you, look, a contractor, if you take 10 contractors, even without asking them anything, you just work genuinely for them, right? I guarantee you that not less than 6 of them will come back to say thank you, right? Okay. So what happens is that invariably the appointees from directors onwards, the ministers make a lot of money. So the upshot is that when you have a president who at least seeks to redistribute that money a bit, right? By saying that let's give pay 1 year for our younger brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters. For me, it's commendable. That's in the same vein. That's how come I supported Akufo-Addo when it came to the free SHS. Because, you know, politics, we have eyes, we can see you. We can see. Let's not use constitution and laws. You know, we can see. You see your classmate go into a certain ministry. In 4 years, what he has earned, Master, in private practice, you won't earn it in 20 years. We can see. But, you know, our systems are very weak. So there isn't much you can do about it. So this redistribution of our national wealth is commendable. I commend
it's not even just in Ghana. It's not only just in Ghana. Definitely want to get even boards that you sit on, committees that you sit on and all of that. So that I agree with the redistribution of the wealth. And it's almost bringing us back to what some of our parents enjoyed. They went to university and they were given food. They would go into the kitchens, and when the food is not there, they would even revolt. So we're getting back. And for me, any investment in our education, currently look at it. Getting somebody to come as a house help in your house is difficult. And you know the reason why? It's free SHS. Because now all of them have had opportunities of going to school. So what we are going to increasingly do with all the things that we're doing is that we're going to be creating that critical mass that people who now will be questioning, so that now politicians cannot just be throwing T-shirts and 50,000 CDs at people. So for me, I think it's definitely a laudable thing. I would just only wish that we tweak it and we make the Ghanaian student at the center of it. And then try and, as we close all the doors to corruption and all of that, we'll get enough funds to be able to do from basic all the way to that particular point.
And also, very important, arm them with the knowledge of creating jobs for themselves
when they get out,
and empowering the private sector to be able to absorb the graduates as well, because you don't want to have that situation where you are also expanding tertiary access and also creating that funding support, but then again when they graduate they don't have jobs to do. Distribute free sanitary pads to female students in primary and secondary schools.
So I wanted to talk about just a quick one.
I'm also very interested. Yes.
A quick one in terms of the gift of the cars.
Sure.
I think there's this saying that you remember that President Mahama's detractors in the previous administration made an issue about a gift of a car that he got.
The Ford saga, you mean?
It was
the Ford.
They made such a big issue about it. You understand? For this thing, he should not have touched it with a barge pole. Nowhere near. I think what should happen is that there should be a protocol in place where if anybody is coming to see the president, they declare whatever they are coming to bring before they even get there, so that he can say, no, this one, it's a no, and direct them what to do exactly, so that he can say, no, this one, if you are coming, come and give it to the states, I receive it on behalf of the states, if I want, you understand, so that they are given proper direction, and then we don't have his detractors use it and manipulate it in such a way that it makes him look bad. So that's my first one. Then, of course, I put the menstrual hygiene thing down. We are in menstrual hygiene month.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Menstrual hygiene month. Okay. On May 28th is menstrual hygiene day.
Okay.
And this is a fantastic policy and venture to do. And I'm glad that our thinking has changed over the years, because I've said this before. When the vice president, when she was education minister and she suggested it, you remember the brouhaha that was made and the noise from ignorant people, not even realizing the importance of this, especially to the sexual and reproductive health of our young women, and even to their overall education. You understand? Because they were missing school, you know, because of a biological function, and they wouldn't go to school. So 5 days out of a month, every time, they wouldn't go to school because they didn't have. And you find out that all these things, it has a cascading effect on our overall health. Indeed. You understand? So it's not just the health of the young ladies, but of all of us in terms of good hygiene. But I always say, let's not also end it at giving them the pads. Let's make sure that the sanitary conditions in our public places, in our schools especially, are catered to. You know, that must be deliberately done, because you have public schools where they have no place at all to you know, perform their own bodily functions. So even if you give her the pads, where is she going to be able to have a comfortable place to change and change it? There's no place to go, so she's going behind the bush, etc. How is she disposing of it? We have to think about that. What are the ways? What kind of materials are we using? Are they biodegradable? Are we going to now see heaps of menstrual pads in places and they're you know, going to cause you know, a menace, you know, in terms of the environment, etc. So as much as it is good and or it is a great policy, I think that we must be looking at the you know, building it on, and then what kind of support are we giving our local industries to produce more, to make it cheaper, so that eventually people can afford it themselves. Right. You get it, because people will move out of schools, and if they move out of schools, they probably won't get the same.
I think that's a question we might have going to get an answer to. Is there going to be any preference for local industry?
Yes, in fact, the policy
producing this,
the policy is clear. The president has handed it down. In fact, the finance minister has made it a precondition for releasing funds that it should be procured locally. So the procurement is being done.
No, that's what I'm saying. The capacity.
There are some who have argued that perhaps we should channel all the money to setting up a state factory. But you see, for me, the objective.
Not state factory.
No. They are saying we should channel the money into building a factory to produce it. That's what people are saying. But you see, to the extent that it is procured locally, government doesn't need to have a state factory producing parts before we can implement a program. But if it is procured locally, I am all for it. And the president is for it, the finance minister is for it, the education minister is for it, and his colleague implementing minister, the gender minister, is for it. And that is exactly what is happening.
But what we're asking is for the to build the capacity of the local.
Yes, but as you procure from them and they generate revenue from the existing contract.
No,
they themselves will naturally invest. Yes,
so I think there should be a deliberate strategic thing to not procure, manufacture parts locally. I can tell you that some of the universities way back had gone to the point where they were using plantain, you know, the plantain stock, to start producing some of these things. So I would wish, again, so you know, this is a demand that you have in there, and you could then get into, so that if even the strategy was procure locally, we have a time frame for that. Then get into providing the capacities for people. And I agree with Felix that it is not for the state to get into it. Okay. If it is the universities, it's for, you know, local people to be able to build this, and it will be good, you know. So you look at it and you know that in this particular district, that would be able to have the capacity to be able to do it. This is how much parts you would be needing over a period. Then you build that capacity. Also bring the universities, bring the technical universities again into it to get into that frame. But I think for me, this is also one of the great policies that we've put in place. The people who laughed at those things, you know, when my boss, the minister, the vice president now introduced it, they don't know what we're talking about. The number of girls who have left school just because of that particular thing, it's so important that this thing has happened. But we need to make sure that we can take this initiative and create giants out of it, create businesses out of it. A lot of the small scale businesses that can do modular businesses within particular district, let them get into doing it, and they know that the demands are going to come. But it has to also be done very openly, very publicly. We know the things around some of these things. Let's make it open so that you can go everywhere and you then can see that the demand for part from my Kata district, for example, these are the people who are producing it and the capacity that we provided. Some of the money should go into innovation, and we need to use the universities and all of that to be able to make that point.
Yeah, because I was getting to there before he got, because when I was saying that you deliberate putting money in, those are the sort of things, R&D, how can we use our local things, you understand? So you must support the industries to, right now you find out that a lot of industries and things like that don't put their money into research because research is expensive. So it is for the government to sponsor research, you understand? And in sponsoring research, we can use more of our local materials and help the things industry to grow. Right. One of the things I wanted to talk about in terms of the education and it is okay to pay for the education. We also need to look at the type of education that our people are getting. You understand? That we are getting an education, and the people are going to the schools, all right, but they're coming up, they're still illiterate. You understand? I mean, functional illiterates, if I put it. They go through the school, it's paid for them, and it is like a mass production of people coming out. We have to really look at it. It's not just about quantity, but quality. But you see, we have to begin to also focus on the primary schools. Yeah. We have schools where they are sharing, the class 1 to 6 are sharing the same classroom, same classroom, the same space. You understand? And there are many children who fall out of that category even before you get to the JSS where it is free and get to the university where you can have the free first year.
Yes,
we have to make a conscious effort to focus on, so that your primary, look, I was speaking to my father the other day. He was saying that, look, people came out of standard 7, and when they wrote and when they spoke and when the kind of work output they gave in the civil service was fantastic, and they were only standard 7 leavers. We should be able to educate people in our primary JSS level, which the primary and the JSS, I think right now they are one, such that when they come out as JHS people, they have the capacity to move anywhere in society to build upon their skills and not necessarily go to university. You understand? So we have to shift our focus sometimes from some of these things, and make sure that the foundation in which we are building our education, and then our education must be such that the people who come out realize that the education is not there for them alone. It is to be put at the benefit of society. Too many times we are going to school, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a pharmacist. Why? To make money. It's about making money. You understand? And that is it. So we have people whose all their focus, is to attain wealth and not to be put at the benefit of their society. And that we must shape that thinking at the primary school level, and it is only if we are deliberate, we put in deliberate policies right at the primary school level, that we can raise that type of citizen who knows that their education should be put at the feet and the benefit of their society and not necessarily themselves.
Thank you. And the next one, let's run through, because we're going to just focus on illegal mining as one of the major areas. Let's go to the next. Within the 120 days, let's flip to the next. Beyond the distribution of free sanitary power, the launch priority job programs that has been done. So let's flip to the next.
But again, you say launch. Launch is not sufficient.
No.
No, Felix, let me.
What is the wording? Please go back.
launch priority job creation.
Exactly.
It's
the wording. So we've done exactly what you promised.
Again, you see, we are in this country where we've seen a lot of launches, we've seen a lot of commissioning, and what has happened after that. So, that's why for me, I'm saying that.
Explain.
No, I'm not talking. I'm saying this is a document you've put out already.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in putting, and that's what the politicians do, because it's easy to then rate this as 100% because they said launch, so they have launched them. But what we should be focusing on outcomes, outputs, impact, and beneficiaries.
That will take some time to come.
Again. So when you craft you see, bear in mind that this promise was given to us based on which we did our voting.
Yes.
And this is an improvement. Let me just say that this issue about a 120-day promise, it's an improvement of what we see so far as our democracy is concerned. It's the reason why now you're beginning to see promises move from promises, they get into the budget, they get into bills, and they are signed into acts. So this is definitely an improvement, and it's a great one to happen. What I'm just saying is that in that process of improving it, the language of it should be very specific. It should be like the same way we'll do our businesses. It should be KPI related. It should be smart. Because we are in a country where launches are done. Why? We didn't launch Agenda 111.
Thank you.
What has happened to Agenda 111?
Okay, so if I may share that. Again, everybody appreciates that 4 months is certainly not going to be enough to do all the things that you intend to do. So the only thing you can do within that period is to begin the process of doing what you. For instance, if it is about setting up a government, that is pretty straightforward. That doesn't even require much. You just need to write a set of names and present to Parliament. So that one, nobody quarrels with. But if you are going to create jobs, everybody knows that. First of all, you need to set up the system and institutions to do so. And that is what we promised. So in each of these job creation interventions, we've taken certain steps. Edumera is an entrepreneurship program. It's not everybody who has to be employed by someone. There are people who have all manner of business ideas, but they are starting very, very small. You need to guide them. Some just require guidance on how to manage their businesses, keep their books, and ensure that basic things are done. Others require a bit of financial push. So after the incubation period, out of the 10,000 people that we are going to deal with, 2,000 of them will actually receive cash injection to set up their businesses, and they will be monitored to ensure that outcomes are achieved. We expect that if each person is able to employ 2 more people, that reduces the burden that government has to find jobs for people. With the apprenticeship program, nobody can dispute what apprenticeship can do for society. I contested elections in AAK, and in the 2 electoral cycles that I participated, I was able to mobilize for almost 2,000 people to learn various trades. After that, they were given machines and all that. Indeed, there's one of them who came to an event that I was holding. I couldn't make her out. I didn't remember her. She came to tell me that she had a son who she struggled to look after because she was a single parent. But I met her somewhere, paid for her apprenticeship, and gave her just 1 dryer. So she set it up in her house, her own compound, and is able to, as it were, do the hair for our female colleagues and all of that. And because of that, now she is able to fend for the little boy. I didn't make her out, but this is a testimony that she herself brought. So there's no dispute what apprenticeship can do. We have 2 million unemployed people. This program targets 500,000 out of them. Like if we are able to take 500,000 out of the 2 million, it will be a significant improvement on the job creation problems that we have. That is what this is intended to achieve. Look at the 1 million coders program, for instance. Even though we call it 1 million coders, it's not just coding. It's all manner of ICT related applications. When the portal was put up, within a matter of 1 week, there were 151,000 applicants. And these are people who will learn the skill that they can live off. Because these days, all manner of things are emerging away from the traditional sources of employment. So these are measurable things. But of course, if you want to check how far the National Apprenticeship Program has gone, you need to give it some time. First of all, you need to register the people, verify their bag. And mind you, with this particular intervention, there is an education component. So it is 70% practical, and then 30% education, so that you are able to set some tests and meet basic standards. In addition to that, there is some affirmative action, which I'm sure Susan will be excited about. The president has said that at least...
Susan, me too,
oh, great. I'm glad to hear that you are agenda advocate. That is fine. The president has said that at least 45% of participants should be women. And then 5% of them should be persons with physical impairment. I won't say disability, impairment. So this is one of the ways that we are ensuring that people do not get left behind. And if we do this, I'm sure that you will be able to create a dent, a significant one at that.
So Felix, I agree with you. I'm just saying that in the crafting think a lot of these things, we should put the KPIs there so that for us outside, we can measure the
So, but actually, you get that in the full manifesto. Mind you, this is only the first pages of our manifesto. But when you read a manifesto, which covers a 4-year plan, indeed, there are some that even go beyond 4 years, because we cannot just do things for 4 years. We need to look into the future and see that there are transitions into the future as well. So those ones are contained in the details of the manifesto. But these are just things that you do as low-hanging fruits.
Let's go on to the next. After jobs and industry support, we got the still on commence reviewing.
Yeah.
Of the,
okay. Well, yes, you don't have time to look
transparency and
so.
accountability.
Yeah, oral is important. So
yes, oral is in there.
I think that one of the issues, and the matter was with oral. Perhaps he can give you further insight. At a point, I think the Ghanaian public just came to the awareness that we needed to change the government because there was simply too much corruption.
Yeah.
And that people were getting away with blue medal. So it was necessary to assure them that a new government will do differently. What are the ways that you do? You must ensure that there is accountability. Those who have squandered public funds must be dealt with. The president knew that time was of the essence. And therefore, even before he took office, he was president-elect. He caused me to issue a statement setting up the oral committee made up of notable individuals with a track record in anti-corruption. Their job was simple. They were not there to prosecute anybody or even accuse anybody of wrongdoing. They were just there to receive complaints or, if you like, evidence or even leads that can lead to further inquiry. About 2,000 applications were sent in.
Round it up to 2,500.
Yes, absolutely. Now, 280 of them were found to have some merits. And so they were submitted to the president, who gave it to the attorney general. But of course, even Martin would agree that what they brought was raw material. Indeed, you could not send anybody to prison on account of that. So if you look at the report, they have what they call persons of interest, persons they believe should be spoken to understand what happened. That has been done. And as I said in the earlier round, all 280 cases are under investigation. Indeed, there is a matrix which I have, which shows what has been done in each case. 65 people. 65 people. And this one is as of 3 weeks ago.
No, I'm sure that people have been what?
They've been invited, they've been interrogated, questioned. Some of them have been granted bail, and some of them actually are on trial.
On a number of the cases.
A number of the cases.
Cathedral, COVID-19.
Yeah, this one the president promised
PDS.
last week that yes, the docket is ready. So the attorney general would the National Cathedral one, the National Service one, SkyTrain. The dockets on those ones are ready, and so in the next few days they'll be taken to court and the prosecution will begin. But as of now, they remain accused persons until it is proven. Some have even questioned why the attorney general gives updates. You see, it is important. Oral, the idea of fighting corruption is routine. It's something that everybody should do. But oral was a specific campaign promise. Like all other campaign promises, the delivery of it must be accounted for. The attorney general, when he holds a press conference, does not convict people. Indeed, even the mere filing of charges is not conviction. The attorney general cannot put anybody in prison. The attorney general can only express confidence that based on the investigations that my team has conducted and the evidence I have seen, I think that this person, I will get conviction against him. But before he does that, he must brief the public that this is the reason why this gentleman, in the Adubuayin case, for instance, we were there one hot afternoon, was it a Saturday or so, when we heard that, indeed, I had never heard of him. To be honest with you, I didn't even know that he was an operative within the security apparatus. The first day I heard of him was that arrest. So even I wondered, and I made calls to the appropriate authorities, what is this thing about? Then they said that no, we will give you a briefing. So I liaised with the attorney general. Then, of course, I have a platform at the Information Services Department where government information is channeled to the people. So the attorney general came and then disclosed that this is the reason why this gentleman's liberties were curtailed. It is not that we are just interested in plucking people off the streets and jailing them, and that we believe that based on information we have, he has done A, B, C, D. That is all that the attorney general said. Then he went to court to file formal charges. In fact, he did not comment on the charges again when he did his next briefing. When he did his next briefing, he only said that the same gentleman that I picked up for this offense, we believe has done another thing involving Ghana Water Company Limited. Also, as of now, we have made progress in the National Service case. There's progress in the SkyTrain case. There's progress in the National Cathedral case. So in the next few days, I will be going to court. That is what he has done. Indeed, it is standard practice the world over. Even Donald Trump, a former American president, when he was accused of wrongdoing, the prosecutors faced the media and put it out. So that is not a conviction. And in fact, we noticed that Mr. Adubuayin has filed a case against the Attorney General alleging. Yes, he is free to do so.
Okay.
So it is up to the Attorney General to defend his position. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Within the next issue we're going to talk about, Ken Officer Swabaji is going to be good. We need to.
But that's the issue about the transparency and the openness about some of these things. It is so important. So I have major issues against people who are saying that the Attorney General needs to let us know that what is happening. And so for me, it's an important thing that has to be happening, and the Attorney General should be consistent about it.
Right. Okay, Lamati, because you were also integral in this oral preparatory team, now I think this is information that out of the 2,500 cases you received and submitted, 280 of them had merit.
Yeah.
65 people have so far been questioned.
And let me say that this 65 is as of 3 weeks ago.
As of 3 weeks.
So I'm sure the number could have increased.
So that's 280 Lamati people out of the 2,500 cases that you receive have merit. Was that
okay? Yeah. So when we use the word merit, it's not to say the rest don't have merit. These are the ones that, considering the time constraints, we could gather enough information to flesh them out. You remember, as Mr. Ofusu mentioned, some of them were leads, okay, some were scanty. We had limited time, so what we did was that for these 280, we could put together the story. You see, sometimes they came as full stories, other times were disjointed, so we could look in the public space, you know, the internet, and then put together the story, like National Cathedral. You see that it had many stories online, so we tried to piece the pieces together. And that's how come we got the 280. It doesn't mean that for the rest of the 2,500 there was no merit. No, right. It's a function of time constraints.
Right. Yeah, I see. Okay. Thank you very much. There are quite a number of. In fact, I have 2,766 of your messages.
Yeah, that's it. We have to isolate 280.
So
excellent.
There's one that is of an inquiry. This says, Alfred, please can we have the portal for the free fee academic for the 2024-2025 tertiary students so we can apply for the refund? If you can show it on your screen. So, Mr. Kwachofosu.
Okay, so the portal for it, and I'm happy that TV3 is assisting with this. It is www.nofeestress.sltf, which stands for Students Loan Trust Fund. .gov.gh.
Okay.
www.nofeestress is one word. .sltf.gov.gh, all lowercase letters. There's another one, which is www.sltf.gov.gh. www.sltf.gov.gh. Right. So you can apply through any. If you have any technical difficulty, just report it. You can send me an inbox or anything. I'll refer it to the appropriate authorities to deal with it.
Thank you. And I'll repeat that before we end the program. But this was what, on the matter of illegal mining, Ken Officer Swabaji is joining us right now as well, and together with my guest already seated. He is a security expert, advising the United Nations and many other international organizations. This, on the matter of illegal mining, we put it on the screen right now, within the 120-day promise and the social contract. He said, ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves. Roll out the Tree for Life and Blue Water Initiative to transform degraded areas into economic and ecological recovery hubs. There's a big conversation on this one because LI 24626 on our books still. And then also the promise, in fact, that Phyllis Kwachofosu himself as well this week made for on behalf of the president about it being repealed subsequently. We'll get into that because we didn't hear the president say it. But this is what the president said.
Yes, we have to address it.
Let's hear the president.
Okay, all right.
This 120 days account, this is what he said about this particular promise on illegal mining. Galamsey, take a look.
Protecting our environment, especially from the threat of illegal mining, has been a strong commitment. We promise to ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves and roll out our Tree for Life and Blue Water initiatives to heal and sustainably harness our environment. In the first 120 days, we've taken decisive action through a 5-pronged strategy to overhaul and sanitize the mining sector. This includes regulatory reforms and strengthening the law enforcement, including joint task forces, arrests and seizures of mining equipment, stakeholder collaboration, reclamation of degraded lands. 7 out of 9 forest reserves have been reclaimed. Illegal miners have been flushed out of these forest reserves. Concerning the ban on mining in forest reserves, on March 20th, 2025, a legislative instrument, LI 2462, was presented to Parliament to amend the Environmental Protection Mining in Forest Reserves Regulation. This amendment removes the President's power to grant approval for mining in forest reserves. I plan also to amend the Minerals and Mining Act 2003, Act 703, to completely prohibit mining in forest reserves. This would effectively, meticulously, legally, and entirely ban mining in our forest reserves. The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has launched the Blue Water Initiative to restore our water bodies in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment. This initiative aims to train and deploy blue water guards to monitor and protect critical water bodies and prevent further pollution. At the same time, experts are working to clean up our polluted rivers. The Tree for Life Reforestation Initiative was also launched on March 21st, 2025, to restore degraded lands and combat climate change. This project aims to plant over 20 million seedlings annually nationwide, including through the One Child Per Tree policy to inculcate environmental consciousness in our youth. By combining enforcement, policy reform, technology, and community engagement, we're on track to reclaim our environment and ensure responsible mining for future generations, achieving the expected outcomes of reduced illegal mining, cleaner water bodies, restored forests, and stronger governance.
Welcome back. That's the President, John Dramani Mahama, there as well on the matter of illegal mining. The vexed matter of LI 2462, the law that allows mining in our forest reserves, sits at the center of this particular conversation on assessment of the President's 120 days in office and the fight against illegal mining. Yes. The President, the wording of this promise, well, you can understand why maybe some things have not been done. But to the extent that that was said during the campaign, it's a demand that it should be done. Yeah, how do you ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves when that law still sits in our books?
Yeah, so first of all, let me say that I understand fully the anxiety of the Ghanaian public, because illegal mining, or if you like I'm saying, it's a terrible activity. In fact, we in government consider it equal to terrorism.
Thank you.
So the same way that we would treat persons who seek to violate our territorial integrity and do harm to our citizens is the same way that we perceive those engaged in it. It's also important, as a second point, that specificity is considered in the discussion of the 120-day promise. Because we made specific promises in respect of the 120 days, and we have to be held by that. Of course, things were also said on the campaign platform. On the platform, what you say equally binds you. So, 2 sets of discussions is what we should be having. The first one relates to what we said we will do in this document that you have before you, I have before me, and others have before them, and the Ghanaian public has access to. The exact wording was this: we will ban illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves.
Yes.
Roll out our Tree for Life and Blue Water Initiative to heal sustainably, I beg your pardon, and sustainably harness the environment by turning areas and water bodies degraded by illegal mining into economic and ecological recovery hubs. So the question then is, how do you achieve this promise? You see, a lot has been said about the LI 2462, which is the Environmental Protection, into bracket, mining in forest reserves regulation. So these are regulations that guide an activity. What is the activity? Mining in forests. The import of this promise is that we are going to stop mining in forests to begin with, so that going forward, nobody can go and mine in a forest. it is important to stress from the very beginning that President Mahama has not granted any leases for anybody to mine in the forest reserve since he became president. However, the previous government awarded such leases, and the firms they were awarded to were not illegal miners. They have acquired the lease, at least on the face of it, legally. So it imposes a binding obligation on the government of Ghana.
I see.
You understand me? For as long as that remains legal, and indeed he is a lawyer, anytime you revoke those leases without showing that they have breached their end of the bargain, you are liable for a certain action. So for as long as they hold those leases, they must be regulated. The moment you revoke this law without doing something about the leases they hold, it means that they are mining without regulation, which is very, very dangerous. So what is the position of government? And let me stress it here, that the position of government is that this LI will go.
Is it LI 242?
It is definite, it will go.
It will be repealed.
Yes, but the question then remains how we are going to do it, such that all factors are considered and that the government of Ghana is insulated from any future actions that will be detrimental to us. Mind you, there are companies, some of them are reputable entities who were given mining leases by the previous government to do mining. So what is the issue?
Some of them were way before even the previous
Agreed. So
the bauxite mine,
so the question, good. So the question then is, what happens if you repeal this law, this regulation, which will guide what they are doing? Nothing will then guide what they are doing. You can also not go and remove them from the forest possibly without going through certain processes.
Because of they have the
exactly. So the government says that, okay, in fact, if you read the LI 2462, the LI itself acknowledges that it must be read in conjunction with 13 different laws, because on its own it does nothing more than do what other laws say.
I want you to flip into that.
Yes.
While I acknowledge the presence of Colonel Fiscal Sabuaje, retired security expert with international repute, is joining us in the studio on the panel now. Colonel Fiscal Sabuaje, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. So the LI itself says in section 1.2 that these regulations shall be read together with other relevant enactments, including at least 13. One of them is the Minerals and Mining Act of 2006, Act 703.
Yes.
So what it is that there are laws that grant leases for people to mine in forest areas. This law says that if you get such a lease, this is how you do the mining, and it regulates it. The Attorney General, who is the chief legal advisor of government, says that the way to go about it is that, first of all, at this moment, make it impossible for anybody on the basis of this LI to get a lease because the president has the power to grant it. You understand me? So remove the president's ability to grant any lease, so that you don't have any people going into the forest reserve anymore up until what we have to do is done. And so, in respect of that, on 20th March, the environment minister, who has jurisdiction over this law, the regulation that I'm reading, went to parliament and laid the LI. It should take 21 days to elapse, but I think we're able to do 11 days. The moment we return, another 10 days come in, and the law, that portion is repealed. So now, when that LI matures, the president can no longer give you a lease or a license to go and mine in a forest reserve. Whilst at it, another law, which is the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 708, will be amended, and an express provision will be put in there that nobody can go into a forest reserve, whether it is legal mining, sustainable mining, or illegal, to go and mine. The moment that amendment is done, this LI will become redundant because there is nothing to regulate. That's the point I'm saying.
Yes.
So it must be borne in mind that this LI is a regulation spelling out how a certain activity that is allowed by other laws should be done. If that activity no longer exists, you won't need an LI. So it will become redundant, and then it will be repealed altogether. Well, so that is what we have said. But in terms of the specific promise that we made, we've kept it. The Tree for Life initiative, have we done it or not? Indeed, on 21st March, I was with the president at Sanitary where it was launched. The idea is to engage in reforestation. Areas that have been degraded through illegal mining will be recovered by planting millions of trees. You've seen some young men and women clad in some yellow and black uniforms. Many people erroneously think that they are the people who we are sending to go and face off with galamseyers who are holding pump action. No, that is not it. You see, you need a certain monitoring mechanism.
Right.
technology is good. You can use technology, but Kenya would agree with me that nothing beats human interface as well in terms of gathering information about the activity of others. So these people will man the rivers. The moment they pick up signals that people are beginning to move into these areas to encroach, they send appropriate word to the right agencies. It is the military and police who have capacity, the training, the skill, and the firepower to deal with these bandits who are operating in the forest reserves. So the Blue Water Initiative people are not people who are going to fight them. They are only going to complement the work of these agencies. And Ken himself said it at the beginning of this program, that substantial progress has. You see, the biggest problem we faced with Galamsey, and the reason why it festered and deteriorated under the previous government, was clear governmental complicity. The fact that, and indeed, as I speak, the special prosecutor has taken a member of the former government, who was in government at the time and is alleged to have been involved in Galamsey, to court. There were regional chairmen, women organizers, and other top executive of the MPP who were known to be engaged in Galamsey. In fact, Akonta Mining, which belongs to the
directors not be arrested.
No, it is a process. Again, it is a process. You don't just arrest without gathering appropriate evidence. You understand me? So I understand the anxiety, I understand the motivation, but you must go through proper process. But I was going to make the point that as I speak to you,
afterwards, this is what I have to say.
There is no governmental complicity. In other words, President Mahama has made it clear. Again, people may not know. President Mahama has convened a high-level meeting within the NDC where everybody who matters in the party was there, from national executive, regional executive, and told them that he is not going to pick his phone if you call him because you have been arrested for engaging in Galamsey as a party person. What happened?
There was a report of the MP for our win.
Yes.
Listen, what has been done?
You see, the point is this, that what happened in the immediate aftermath of the transition is that there are some NDC people who believe that if power has changed, then let us go and take over what the MPP was doing so that we too get some money. That is not going to be an excuse. Anybody who is believed to engage in Galamsey is going to be dealt with. It will be colorblind. In fact, only last week, there were reports that some people masquerading as national security operatives, or if you like, people who say they are NDC, have gone to take over a place that was abandoned by some others who were doing Galamsey. 6 of them have been arrested. In fact, since this government came to power, as I speak to you, 71 people have been arrested. 150 excavators have been confiscated by the state. Vehicles have been seized. Weapons, pump action guns, and other things have been seized. Indeed, 2 weeks ago, it was reported that a whole community, they call it what, Abrewa and Ninkrine or something.
Yes.
A whole community made up of thousands of people had been dismantled by the security agencies as part of the fight against Galamsey. We've seen tangible improvements, but you see, Galamsey is an insidious problem. We have a problem where the moment you tackle it here, the people move to another area. So it is an effort that we must continue to do until we win. So there is a will.
So that's what
there is a will.
The next issue, because excavators have been seized in the past.
Yes.
Illegal, miners in the forest have been arrested in the past. So what significantly different has been done over the last 4 months?
The fact that it has been done in the past and no action has been taken is no reason why it will not be done and done well this time. So President Mahama can only be judged by what he does. He cannot be judged by what others did. So if in the past there was a free for all and the president turned a blind eye, I will not deal with people. He himself was granting mining leases to companies to mine in forests. President Mahama has not done so. He has not granted any such license. In fact, you recall that one of the first actions we took as a government was to revoke all licenses that were given that we believe were not done regularly. So since there are no new licenses have been issued, and the president is firm on that, anybody who violates that will face severe sanctions.
It would have been refreshing to hear the president make this commitment that you just made, that LI 2462 will be repealed or revoked eventually.
The context within which he was speaking was the 120-day promise. You understand? So specificity is important. What does the 120-day promise? I will read it again to you. Man illegal and new mining activities in forest reserves. Roll out our Tree for Life and Blue Water Initiative to heal and sustainably harness the environment by turning areas and water bodies degraded by illegal mining into economic. In terms of banning illegal and new mining activities, there's an ally that takes away his power to grant any licenses for people to mine in forest reserves. So it has been achieved. Tree for Life, it has been done. The Blue Water Initiative, it has been done. More needs to be done so that the entire airline, which regulates, and you see, people have not abated their minds to this. The airline regulates an activity that is allowed by other laws. That is what that is. So remove that activity. How do you remove it? Amend the laws that grants the capacity to people to do that activity. Once that is done, the airline is useless, and therefore the airline will go. So that's what I mean when I say that the president is committed, and steps clearly are underway. The airline is in Parliament. We will go and sit for another 10 days when Parliament resumes. It ceases to be law, at least that provision, Section 3(2), which grants the president the power to do so. So yes, we must fight galamsey, but it must be done lawfully. It must be done carefully. It must be done sustainably so that the impact lasts. Whilst we do that, let us not create additional problems for ourselves because we are in haste to do things and we don't do it meticulously. So, but as for the overarching principle and philosophy, that galamsey is intolerable, it is devilish and must be addressed. Everybody who says so is right, and the president agrees, and we will do exactly that. Thank you very much.
So let me you see again. Let me bust your bubble. September 2019, total excavators seized 340, immobilized 530, total 870. Water pumps total 2,413. Arms 225. Ammunitions 2,600 and chamfans 10,000. So that those things when they are happening, they are not new. We did all of that. This is a report coming from Operation Vanguard, and we failed on it. So they are not new. We talk about the issues about dealing with those who are politically exposed. You saw that Felix did not answer the question about what's happening to the NDC MP for Awen. What is happening to the NDC constituency chairperson for Axim, who has been accused openly by Agamus of being involved in galamsey? What has happened to the NDC constituency chairperson for Dunko, who openly confronted state actors, military people who had been taken into a particular place to go and do work? What has happened to them? What has happened to the NDC CEO, KMA CEO, who was using confiscated equipment? That Act 955 clearly stipulates how it's going to be done. And then took, how do you call it, national security operatives, armed to the teeth, broke the gates of the depot for Forestry Commission, went to commandeer 55 equipment and took them out. One of my nephews in the Jubilee House had some different words for me when we were talking about that. What has happened to that? So you see, you saw the way oral was dealt with. That because corruption was insidious, immediately before even Felix became a minister, he was made to issue a statement. We have not treated galamsey as a terrorism act. Currently, as we speak, based on what the president himself said, there are 2 forest reserves in this country that are still in the hands of bandits.
Based on the lands minister.
No. Forget about the lands minister. The president, when he was delivering this one, said to us, and I'm sure that one was an error. We said 7 out of the 9 had been reclaimed. What he meant was re-echoing what the minister for lands had said. The 7 out of that 9 forest reserves that we have, terrorists, bandits, mercenaries have taken control over. We have reclaimed 7. Even the 7, when one forestry commission person went in there, he was hacked. I don't know whether the surgery, after the surgery, he's recovered and is coming back. But you have 2 out of the 9 land masses in Ghana that are no-go areas. Based on what the president said when he was addressing the 120 days thing, that are no-go areas. And if you look at the reasons why the NDC supported the state of emergency, those reasons are rife when it comes to those 2. At least let's, believing the president, those 2 that are no-go areas. Why are you not declaring the state of emergency in those particular places? So I'm saying that the promise itself, the way it was crafted, was flawed. The things that are promised in the things that are in that promise 19 will not deal with the issues of galamsey for us. And so when Felix talks about the fact that you have an airline that comes, the airline will not take retroactive effect. And also before the airline, there was a guidelines that was used in managing forest reserves that ensured that with the guidelines it was only 2% that you're going to do. If you go into this new regulation that they are deciding that they are not going to revoke, in that regulation, it turns the way management of the act is done. You will go to the minister first and get a mining, permit or authorization first, and go to everybody before you come to the Forestry Commission. It was turned completely upside down in this airline. So when we talk about the airline having to be revoked, when the president himself said that he was going to revoke it, it was because of all of those things. The airline that we have is an illegality. And again, he's right to say that every airline should be based on a parent act. Go and check the Forestry Commission, the EPA, whether they have any, a parent act, the Forestry Commission Act. Whether it gives them anything to do anything in the forest. Are they one of the natural resources? They don't. So that airline itself is illegal by the way it is situated. So when the president says all they are going to do is amend it, it is wrong. It is so wrong. It is not what he promised us. He told us that he was going to repeal E-levy. Within 82 days, he did it. Why is it that when it comes to this particular one, that's not what is happening? Is it a coincidence that the chairman of the subsidiary legislative committee was our attorney general? Then, when this act was passed, an act that was passed that did not have any stakeholder engagement at all. So you see, the way we are dealing with Galamsey, unfortunately, we have seen all of it before. Yes, there's a lot of change that has happened. The current minister, and his colleagues, they are doing stuff. But unfortunately, the elements that are ganging up against them, if you don't take this, because you see, when you are at war, when you have terrorists, approaching any part of your country, you don't deal with them the way we are dealing with them. And then we are sitting there and Akunta mining, for example. You have Akunta mining that me and Martin, we have a petition. There was a lot of evidence from the past government about it. And up to now, Akunta mining has not been arrested. And you see, the president, not only did he give us a 120-day promise, he signed a pact with the people of Ghana. It's the fact that he was the first presidential candidate that signed it. And the elements of that pact are very clear. There are 5 points. That immediately he would denounce the practice of Galamsey. He would accordingly call all perpetrators of the heinous crime, be stopped, and agents and all. So there are 5 points. He has a copy of it. So what we are currently doing when it comes to Galamsey, unfortunately, I would give the president about 30% when it comes to the issues of dealing with Galamsey, because the way we should deal with this issue, we are not dealing with it. In July 2024, in one of the hotels, the president told us that he was going to deal with the kingpins of Galamsey. Felix told that about some arrests that have been made. They should name any of the kingpins that have been dealt with. You have the situation from Professor Frepov-Wati's report. How many of those people have been dealt with so far as this is concerned? And if we don't deal with this, the political exposed persons who are engaged in it.
At least one person has been dealt with now.
Which one is that?
Special prosecutor. In the case of Charles Bishop,
Yeah, so that's one. That's the special prosecutor who is supposed to be independent of the attorney general and all of that. And what has the attorney general himself done since he came into office? I moved from chairman to come to the press conference of the minister when he came to Akunta mining, because I thought that it was so important. But as we the dance we say, nothing. We've not had any of these directors. There are two directors. None of them have been arrested. There are several petitions that we've been sent. We sent a petition on our own MP to the president. All he's done is acknowledge the receipt of it. What has happened to it? So I'm telling you, till if we really want to, what has happened? 2020, 2016, 2017, there was a criminal transition that happened. So the NDC people, the MP people, and most of them, they are not even party people. They are people who benefit from calling themselves as being at the end, but they are criminals. There was a transition, and then the MP people took over. Now, unfortunately for all of us sitting around this table, there's no transition. There is a merger. What has happened is that now the NDC people, they are the people who are in front. And so, based on that, they might have 70%, 60%. The MPP people have now joined with them because they might have equipment that are in the place. They might have brought people from, our sub-regions, and they are mining for them and all of that. And so, we have, unfortunately for all of us as Ghanaians, our last hope of dealing with this problem is His Excellency John Mahama. Unfortunately for us too, he does not have 4 years to deal with it all. He has 2 years. after 2 years, Felix and his colleagues will be clamoring for his position. At that particular point, they will throw everything to the dogs. So when the Minister for Lands invites all of us to join them, let's join them and tell them the things that they are doing wrong. So how is it that you have Act 995 and when you go into the Constitution, Martin would help me. There's a constitutional element that says that the government will have to make sure that every law in this country, they are going by it. Then the minister
58,
for
Article 58, the president sees to the implementation and execution, maintenance of the laws.
Exactly. So, but then you have a minister for interior who we are applauding to say that I'm reshuffling the police because either the police are complicit or they are incompetent in dealing with it. Then this minister, there's a law, Act 995, where he was part of parliament when that was passed, that says that any criminal, any foreign criminal who comes to do this, who has to be deported based on the Immigration Act, you will prosecute and jail the person first. And then the Deputy Attorney Minister for Interior, I don't even want to say the things he said. We said that we were good enough for the bad reasons, but the foreigners we have to deport. That's supporting the same thing that my senior engineer Osafo Mafu said very abysmally about the deportation of Aisha Wang. And we are doing that in this particular time when we know that we currently have terrorists approaching us and we will not deal with them. How is it also that we have a situation where, as I've said to you, these politically exposed persons, the president was on the platform. What said to us? The National Service, he was ordering an investigation into it. Why is it that we've not heard the president talk about that? That he was also going to order an investigation to his NDC MP for Awen, who says it's not him, but it's the chiefs. And then his NDC constituency chairperson. And there's a new video that I don't know whether you've seen it, of some constituency chairman again who is being accused around on the BBNE road close by it, doing the mining. So you see,
when I asked the question about the OM MP, I got the response was that
first of all, he has denied sin, but he is not excluded from investigation and prosecution. The point must be made clearly. You understand the point I'm making? Okay. Again, all that Ken has said, I have heard. I have given you responses to sin. People have been arrested for engaging in galamsey. The fundamental point about making sure that people do not go and mine in forest reserves, I have explained that currently as we speak, the regulations that we are referring to are what guides the work. In fact, the regulation exists to guide the work of people doing mining in forest reserves legally, not illegally. In fact, you can't even do illegal things to begin with. If you revoke it today, it means that those who are doing the mining in the forest reserves now, who got their licenses long before President Obama came to power, are not regulated by anything. No, but the process. That's why you're wrong. That guideline was before that. No. But you can't say that those guidelines have been improved upon. No, yes, but the guidelines good. But you cannot remove this. And we're relying on old guidelines that were found defective. For which we no, the guidelines were better. I'm coming to make a point. Again, I'm coming to make a point. You see, I was on the floor. Let me finish. Okay, let me finish. You see, the thing about it is that the guidelines, you go back and go and look at it. And Felix, this was when before you came into power. I agree, yes. When the guideline, when we did that conversion, and let me tell you, if you look into it, in that piece of legislation, the president cannot even order mining in seed orchards. But because the NPP government wanted to go into Etiwa, that is why they introduced that particular section that gave the president the ability, and it was the ability to go even not only into a forest reserve, it was an ability to go into a globally significant biodiversity area. And bear in mind, the guidelines that we had, you could only mine in production forest reserve. But this very bad law then opened all of it up. You see, so everything about the law is bad. And then let's not make this thing that when we take the law away, the guidelines will still exist. And the guidelines are better because with the guidelines, before you will be giving opportunity of even being going to be able to prospect, the Forestry Commission will have to give you a forest entry permit. But now you've turned all of that and it's
so there was a call, please, and Ken Officer Sabaji, on just your first quick thoughts on this fight against illegal mining now, and where we are at the moment, what progress has been made, and what has to be done to improve on the gains made so far. Ken.
Well, very unfortunately, I need to explain that I've been ambushed. This was not what I was asked to come and discuss.
Yes.
But nevertheless,
the media, they will do that too.
I think in general, we can all observe that there is some strenuous efforts on the part of the new administration to pick up the loose ends and gain a bit of traction in addressing what probably the political class has failed to either recognize or admit that this Galamsey thing is completely different from terrorism. This is an existential threat.
Correct.
Our existence now and the future existence of our children and grandchildren is what is at stake. If we go about devouring, devastating the natural environment, our rivers and forests and so on. So that's what baffles me. Because if you and I had a shotgun in our room or rooms, and we knew that there was a lion that was attempting to jump over our walls to come and devour us, you can imagine the kind of precipitate action that we're going to take. Yes. And I don't get that sense. Yes. Not necessarily about this government, yes, but all the administrations. I don't get the sense that our governments recognize that this Galamsey thing is going to destroy the future of Ghana. So let me accept all the recommendations, especially those made by him and others. This question of the state of emergency, revocation, whatever it is. Let me associate with all of them, although I may not accept all of them. I have one important strategic advice to give to the government.
Right.
That this Galamsey thing has been with us for hundreds of years. And yet our forests and river bodies remained intact. Yes. Why? Because people were using, what do you call it, Middle Ages, hands and soso and aso and those kinds of things. So the impact on the environment was very, very minimal. Yes. Currently, second industrial revolution technologies, what we call the heavy equipment, is what is concerning. So strategically, the main effort, forget about whether you're changing laws, whatever it is, your main effort, as we call it in the military, must be about how you rein in the deployment of heavy equipment into those sensitive areas. Look, and then again, I don't see any metrics. So all that my senior colleague, Leonard Friend,
Leonard.
Leonard Friend. Everybody saying
you call senior.
You don't see the metrics.
Okay.
For instance, if we say that there are 9 forests that are of significance to the country, and we have managed in 120 days to recapture or repossess 7, you can measure the progress.
Yes.
Now, against what benchmarks are we, deploying these government efforts? So my only advice, or one of 2 pieces of advice, is for the government to deploy efforts as a main effort to ensure that heavy equipment don't go anywhere near our forest reserves and river bodies. Secondly, this is not about law. This is a moral question. I find it difficult to understand why a foreigner comes into our country legally or illegally to destroy our heritage, and then we give them safe passage back to their country. And on the contrary, we then send their local collaborators or the Ghanaian to prison. That should not happen.
Right.
Forget about whether they are Chinese. Nobody, no foreigner is superior to the sovereign citizens of this country.
Right.
And I think that approach needs to be addressed. The next time we find foreigners, straight away they must go to a special court, prosecuted. And if we don't have prisons, let's go and build camps, tents, and put them in. We are not supposed to use our taxpayers' money to go and put them in rooms. I'm saying this because you and I know, I can only imagine that if I enter China and go and do 0.01% of what some Chinese are doing, of course Europeans and Americans, they're all here.
Right.
I will not come back to Ghana. And nobody owes Ghana any apology that a Ghanaian called Festus Abuaji has come to Wanju or wherever he's gone on the Yellow River and he's illegally mining.
Yeah.
The Chinese government will not owe Ghana any apology. By the way, the ambassador told us, which was a shame, that look, this is your land, you have your laws. So if my citizens come here and violate your laws, deal with them in accordance with your laws.
Right.
So from Aisha 1, I thought that the reset agenda was going to say that from day 1 of the 120 days, any foreigner that was apprehended was going to be prosecuted. I think it must stop.
Right.
It doesn't show respect at all to the citizens of Ghana.
Right.
These are the 2 points that I think I want to make.
Thank you so much. And Phyllis Kwachofos is going to leave us in a bit. But let me just also say we're going to go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll have his final take on this matter. And then also Lawyer Martin Pebu and Madam Susanna Duamankwa. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. Also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and Voice of London Radio and the heart of the city of London. And I acknowledge all the messages from there. I'll read as well. And this morning, I've been clothed by Kogra Clothing. It's the best version of you. Locate them on the Spintex Road, 18 Junction, the same building with the Ghana Made store. Call them on this number for this outfit. Many others that you've seen me wear on Key Point, 026 055 8056. 026 055 8056. That is 026 055 8056 for some more. And I'll go for this quick break. When we're back, we'll finish up the conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3 FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. This one here, a number of your messages. It says, Susan won my heart this morning. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. It says the law must be made to work. Thank you very much. This one's coming from Patrick Suman. Thank you. Also, quite a number of your birthday messages as well. Safik Seinu says, TV3, yes, thank you for the conversation. The discussion is so forward-looking, devoid of politics. Says, I love today's conversation. Thank you. And then also, Engineer Kena Sigbe says, pitch has gone high on this matter of illegal mining. Please, he should lower it a bit because microphones, he says the microphones are capturing every bit of it. Engineer, let's just round up on this particular one. Quick one.
I think Kenna was really spot on in terms of the thing that we need to deal with. The excavators have become the weapons of the mass destruction.
Okay.
The good thing about it is that in the past government, the Minerals Commission set up a tracking system that currently works. Everything about it works. The only reason why it was not, they have a law in place that if actually the fees, charges, and all of that are in place. The only reason why it was not pushed fully was because it would have dealt with the main effort would have been in place. And currently, what we need to plead with His Excellency the President is that he has an arsenal to deal with this galamsey. So he should immediately, and this was done in collaboration with UMAT, the professors in UMAT. So this is a wholly homegrown solution that they have that has elements that would be able to integrate with the military, the law enforcement agencies. It would be able to enable them in Accra to be able to actually geofence. So your excavators are geofenced according to the what concession has been given to you. So we need to expand it immediately. I hear the minister has allowed for 4,000 new ones to happen. I've seen recently that DVLA has gone in there so that there will be some collaboration between the DVLA and the Minerals Commission together happen. And it should be every excavator, not necessarily whether it's for roads or anything. So the solution exists. And if the reset is happening, we should be able to see that in the next few days, this thing should be fully operational.
Madam just a brief one on this.
Yeah, I agree with Ken with this mine repository and tracking system. We definitely, every single excavator that comes into this country must be tracked, and we must use. If we are using technology, we must use the technology to ensure that it benefits us.
Thank you.
Well, of course, we're talking about the Mine Watch app also, where they are empowering citizens to report, send in locations, and photographs, etc., etc. But importantly, the president, again, I would say, he must punish those people who deviate from the norm. We know that he's getting the pushback from some actors in the NDC who say, well, this is our time. Okay, so we need to make money. And that's where I also agree with Ken, that we must also be pushing at him for him to know that we are watching and we are pushing him. So whatever push he is getting from the other side to say that, oh, we also need to make some money and this is our time and this is our NDC time. This, Galamsey thing is a threat for all of us, irrespective of political color. So he should know that he has our support. He should start with sacking a few people. Just yesterday, apparently some supposedly big men again sent armed people to the forestry place in Kumasi to get those excavators, and the forestry stood their ground. We are waiting for an open fire fight before, because the forestry guys were saying, then we need to beef up our security because the people are coming in again saying that some big man says that we should come for the excavators. Okay. So that threat is there. I think that he needs to make examples of people. And public examples of people, that we can all see and everybody will sit up.
Just a quick. I know you are one of the last update you had from the CID on this Akonta mining matter.
None.
So we are actually preparing to send a fresh letter to COP Lydia Donko. She's new CID boss, right? So that it will come to the front burner. Yes, so COP Lydia Donko, we are coming. Because that's what this Akunta mining matter. We'll have to get to the bottom of it. So now, to me, is answering charges at the Financial Intelligence Center, right? His assets frozen, etc. But that's not the end. He needs to answer for the distraction to the Tanon Nimri forest, because we added the videos and etc. that Erastus Asaredonko captured. You know, he did a video of the distraction, more than 10 football fields, etc. And we presented all that to the CID. So we'll see when we, return to the new CID boss, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
And then also let's mention that, so in all of this fight, for me, yes, I see. Engineer Kenashigbe, more fire. Good. Let's, you see some are saying the fire is too much, all that. That's the way Ghanaians are. We're a bit too laid back. You see, the politicians have tons of problems, so we need to keep going at this pace to get the results. Those of you, that's how it is. The moment somebody gives a bit of fire, oh, no. Do you have a personal problem? Please, those days are gone. Those days are gone. I remember those days, when I was speaking, he has a personal problem with Kufuor. He has a personal problem with this finance minister, etc. When people are killing you, what do? You fight back. So those of you sending those messages is too much. No, even if any of us dies, remember that, listen, the tree of democracy, right, is watered from time to time with the blood of patriots and villains. So if anybody dies, he dies, right? Stop this is that is too much fire. Get out of your comfort zone. A lot of the time, you've been the problem that you don't want to say anything about your uncle who is causing us a lot of headache. You don't want to say anything about your brother because you know your brother will bring money to your home. Is this participation enablers? We've been enablers for too long. Too long.
Thank you.
We hope that changes forever, right? So I'm most excited. And when I heard the president repeat it, that, there'll be no mining in the forest reserves, I was excited. You know my excitement because of the Tiwa forest. Because I always tell people that when I took the Tiwa forest case, the average lawyer would have told that, are you insane? Are you delusional? You can't fight government. Because they wanted to mine in the Tiwa forest. So every time the president repeats that there will be no mining in the forest reserves, I'm like, thank God, this case I've won even before the judge gives judgment, right?
Right.
Good.
Thank you. Mr.
All right, but let me say that the passion, the willingness to see action on Galamsey is well noted. It is appreciated. The concerns expressed are valid. There are things that we as a government are not opposed to. But I need to point out that steps are being taken to ensure that the ultimate objective of winning the war against Galamsey is realized. And everything we are doing is in that regard. First of all, there will be no governmental complicity. And that people are not going to hide behind party affiliation to carry out the same things that were done in the past. Everybody who is found to have done this will account for it. And that is a firm assurance that President Mahama has given. And he has found it necessary to even tell his own party people. Secondly, there have been significant improvements on the situation, and everybody can see it. And we intend to build upon it. Finally, the airline will go. I said that we believe that we need to use the route as outlined by the Attorney General. I'm certain that by the time that the next session of Parliament is over, this airline will go. We will get more robust laws that safeguard our environment in a way that is sustainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And a number of your messages as well. This one here says, Isaac Newton Asari says, Alfred, good morning. Please tell Engineer Kanashigbe that 70% in Legon is B and not A. Thank you very much. And also Dr. Victor Bampo of NHI is sending a happy birthday message to you. Robert Coleman as well, also sending a birthday message to you as well. Mr. Felix Kwachofosu. Sure. And Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekpo also says, good morning, happy birthday to my couple, Felix Kwachofosu. A guideline is issued based on a regulation issued in pursuance of a provision in an existing enactment. So a law that is repealed or non-existent will ipso facto cancel any regulation or guideline issued based upon same. That's the law. And he puts the Latin there as always. And which
it explains the point that
essentially. Thank you. And then this matter you touched on Kwabena Duboahing. The latest, as we do know, is the memo to the National Security Coordinator, which is public or has been made public. Now, in this memo, Kwabena Duboahing is essentially stating that one, he cannot tell where the AG gets his theories from, but addressing the National Security Coordinator, as your good office would have learned by now, the matter relates to transactions between your special services account, that's special operations account, coordinated account, and SPV account, and BNC Communications Bureau, duly authorized and created for the national security exigencies of the time. And it goes on that and for which my wife, duly vetted, were instrumental in facilitating. So he says that the involvement of Angela, his wife, was duly vetted by the national security apparatus, that she had to be involved in it. Well, that's what is in this memo. And he details some of the transactions and the money, the 49 million CDs in question that is being accused of were used for. When we did the calculation ourselves, it came up to 44 million. So there's a short of 5 million in the same memo that he put on. But this is it. Let's put that on the screen right now. The details as was extracted from the same memo that he through his lawyers put out. It said special operations. Taros, Scorpion, SCN1, SCN2, Hive, over 9.5 million in 2020. Justification, operations, part payment towards special cyber and electronic surveillance solutions. And this was received according to Dubai ISC Holdings. Operations, Conquered First, counter-terrorism special operations, 6.9 million between 2020 and 2024. Stability of the nation, counter-terrorism extremism, various personnel and activities. Operation Calm Life, anti-kidnapping, about 3.78 million. And then also parliamentary enactment of NSB Act 2020, special, 960, according to him, 960,000 CDs was given as MP's allowance. MP's allowance to the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament for the enactment of the National Signals Bureau Act 2020. Goes on, parliamentary special enactment, some 309,000, another MP's allowance, election special operations, allowance and logistics in December 2020 was for the stability of the nation. And then goes on again, election special ops 2024, about 6.7 million, stability of the nation. Election special operations, support for opposition party, communication equipment for election results coalition, some $500,000 in there, he says. And he said that whoever received it is described as classified. And Mr. Kwachu, did you receive this $500,000? You were in opposition then.
Well, I was far away. I couldn't possibly have.
But did the party have any record of receiving this money, including this one?
Alfred, is
special aid to the president-elect?
Alfred, ordinarily, because the matter is sub judice, the appropriate platform where Dubai should be making these revelations is the court. If this is defense, he should take it to court for the judge to determine whether it will master scrutiny. But just so that people do not get any unfortunate impressions. You see, many of the claims he makes are most improbable. I know that intelligence agencies engage in all manner of covert activity. But the idea that a certain party, a party in government, would actually finance their opponents to remove them from power, beats my imagination. It defies logic, to be honest with you. I don't see how the MPP government would approve that significant amounts of money of the sort that Edubuahi mentions should be given to the NDC to boost our electoral operational capacity in order to defeat them in elections. It is most improbable. The Americans have something they call a Hail Mary. That is if you follow American football. When you are trailing and there are a few minutes to go, what they do is to balloon the ball across several yards in the hope that it will hit target. That appears to be what Eduboahin is doing. If you look at the dates, and it's important to appreciate the charges that have been brought against him. He operated an account, which was essentially a private account, but made it such that it resembled, at least in name, the official account of the National Signals Bureau. To begin with, all these transactions that he claims to have been made, they could have been made from the main Signals Bureau account. Why do you need to create a special purpose vehicle to do the very things that you are set up to do? Secondly, why does his wife have to be a joint signatory to a special purpose vehicle which belongs to the state?
You said she was vetted.
The wives, and I'm sure Kenneth will confirm this, the wives of all security chiefs are vetted. But it is just to ensure that their background is clean and that they do not compromise their husbands or spouses in any way in terms of the performance of their duty, or that they are not revealing some information that be detrimental to the interest of the state. That is all. That's about it. But just like all public officials, conflict of interest to be avoided. You cannot employ your wife, who is a civilian and has not been formally engaged as a member of the security services, in this sort of scheme. So the explanation does not even make sense. And you've had the NDC come out clearly to debunk these claims. So I think that it is neither here nor there. It does not answer the charge. In fact, look at the timelines. He claims to have disbursed monies in 2024.
December 2024.
Exactly.
Election special operation.
Meanwhile, the account in question is supposed to have been closed in 2023. There are some of the claims that he makes that could not have been possible. The LI that he refers to, the act, the new National Signals Bureau Act that he refers to, was passed in 2020. And yet he claims to have paid monies in 2024. How could you pay monies for a law that didn't exist at the time? Or whose work, or on which work was not being done at the time? So clearly, there are significant gaps in the claim that he is making. Right. But again, as I said, if he is confident that these explanations will master scrutiny, let him take it to court as his defense, and let's see how it goes. But the Attorney General is confident that he has sufficient evidence to secure conviction in that particular case. That's all I will say about it.
Right. You say these are revelations that are an eye-opener and enlightening, to say the least?
Yes. Absolutely. You know, I'm sure by now you've been following me. It's easy for you to predict my thoughts. Anything that goes well for Ghana, yes, I'm support it. So, what's happening? I agree with Mr. Fosu that these are not answers to the charges in court, because Ayini's case is that the monies left the NSB account, went to his private company account, and then from there to Mayfair Properties. So it means that Dr. Ayini is holding those bank statements, Mayfair Properties, for properties, and he's shown the properties that were acquired, right? So these revelations don't answer the court case. That's the case Ayini put forward, that I see transfers from Government of Ghana, that's NSB account, to your private Communication Bureau account, and from that place to Mayfair. So all these revelations don't show Mayfair. So I don't see this as an answer to the charges in court. But what he's done is to show us, like the suspicions we've always had, that Oga the chop when I'm money. So that's where the revelations are an eye opener. So I encourage Eduboahin to go ahead, furnish us with more evidence. This is how we will push politicians back. He's done extremely well by coming out. But you see, once opposition are saying it's not true because you've not brought the statements, please go ahead, publish the statement. Listen, like earlier on I said that from time to time the tree of democracy is watered with the blood of patriots and villains alike. It's generally ascribed to Thomas Jefferson. I think Thomas Jefferson was the fourth president of the US, right? So anyone, go ahead. Yes, people are saying you are going to drag others along. Yes, drag them down, drag everybody down. It helps our democracy. Look at the US. You remember the lady Chelsea Manning, previously Bradley Manning. This is the US soldier, the one who helped do the this WikiLeaks. You see, it brought a lot of embarrassment to the US and the other countries involved. But at the end of the day, it's made them a better society because people will learn how not to repeat the same mistakes. So Edubuahi, go ahead, bring the bank statements, publish them. Attach here, publish them. It will help. Because at the end of the day, then it will tell politicians that we are watching. Because look, these politicians, they are classmates, are juniors, sons and daughters. They are not angels. So those days where, oh, honorable do everything right, they are long gone. If we don't get actively involved, that's the same way our money will keep going
to
down
the extent that, as we see in the national security contract or disbursements don't get that scrutiny because of the secrecy and opacity.
No, it's not true. You see, again,
when they are discussing their budget, it's not under closed door.
No, you see, closed door. Excuse me. You see, when just before we rose, there were some briefings that were done in camera. For instance, the Power Economy. Mr. Guzitano came to brief us in camera. It was not illegal. There was nothing wrong with it. There's a reason why. It is a standard that is done globally. The reason is to ensure that certain secrets do not get into the hands of adversaries. That is all. But the laws of Ghana subject the accounts of all intelligence agencies to the same rigorous scrutiny and auditing by the Auditor General.
But we don't get to see. So that's the point.
If there is any wrongdoing, it will be flagged and you will be prosecuted.
And that's where the next chapter, I'm coming to the Auditor General. You see, today, earlier on, I said Johnson Ekwuamesi must leave office immediately. Because the question is that, so these disbursements that Edubuahi made, his auditors, who went and audited the thing? Ekwuamesi must come out.
If what he is saying is true. That's all. You need to have that.
Yes. This story looks credible. That's what I'm saying. You must come out with the bank statements. Come out. And then Ekwuamesi, the Auditor General, must also come out. Who are his auditors? Those who audited those accounts. Plus he himself. They have questions to answer. Because very often, that's why Auditor General's office, they do. You hear snipers here that they go to audit and then they will call the head of the institution and settle matters with the institution, the head. Yes, they will ask, is there something, anything that you think we will see? Then you tell them, then they settle matters. And of course, there are backhands here and there. So this case is a classic one that we must get into the bottom. Edubuahi, bring out the statement so that we will probe further and get all those people who audited their accounts. Plus yourself. It doesn't matter. I mean, you've been dragged down already. So drag all the other people you can down with you. It helps. At the end of the day, you'll be a hero. Okay?
For chopping our money and buy 25 houses.
No, we'll get the houses back.
The main issue, reason why you even came through, but also it was important we got your thoughts on the illegal mining. If you read the statement that this memo that has been put out there, authored by Edubuahi and his lawyers, there's a point that he says, I have tried to withhold classified information from my interrogators, but I deem it prudent to inform your good office that in light of the current developments, we run the risk of public disclosure of the following national security and intelligence operations expenditure items. That's what he put out there. What's your concern on this?
I totally disagree with anybody who parades the mantra of national security as the reason why certain pieces of information should not come out. Point number one. Point number two, Honorable.
Yes, sir.
It is not the fact that the way we practice oversight, democratic accountability of our security and intelligence institutions is at the global standard. It is not. In fact, our intelligence and security institutions have a field day. So many things that nobody sees. And I was a bit demented that his wife, Edubuahi's wife, can be given security clearance to see classified material, but not Honorable Brian Echampo, who was the chair of the Defense and Interior Committee at the time, or Honorable Agalga, who was the ranking. They don't see the information that they want to see, not from the defense budget and not from the intelligence budget. You remember the Kroll issue? 2 2 days into the 10 days that the Supreme Court gave Mr. Domolevo to read the response from a senior minister, whether he was satisfied, he was sacked. A new Auditor General was appointed, who then went to the Supreme Court and said that from what he had seen, he was satisfied that there had been no wrong. Honorable Domolevo, sorry, Mr. Domolevo, was asking the Supreme Court for an interpretation of Article 187 and its sub-clauses, which mandates the Auditor General to look at everything that is public account, including of institutions established by an act of parliament. Now here, Dubois-Hines outfit, National Signals Bureau, was established by an act of parliament, 1040. And therefore, there is nothing in the act and not in the Constitution, 187, which precludes the Auditor General from seeing what it is that these monies have been spent on. And it's actually, I don't know, it undermines our national security, actually, that his wife was given security clearance, but not these other persons who needed to see the books. Third point is that if you look carefully, in 2020, a number of intelligence and security acts were passed, including the national, strategic plan. Now, against this backdrop, you begin to ask, was there an agenda to try to craft these instruments and then use that as a veneer to do things behind the scenes? Let me quickly refer to an article that not many Ghanaians might be aware of. Now, this is published by one Tony Roberts as a member of a team of researchers who looked into money spent by African government, in fact globally, to buy specialized equipment and software for purposes of cybersecurity, intelligence, and so on.
Right.
Now, they say that some African government, 2023, November, are spending millions to spy on their citizens, stifling debate and damaging democracy.
This was
the software
study.
Yes, this is a research study by 5 researchers. You know, the software came from US, UK, China, EU, and Israel. The African governments were Nigeria, Ghana, Morocco, and Malawi, and Zambia. So our government acquired this equipment
to spy on it.
To spy. In fact, when you read the whole article, it says that they were spying on the political opposition. So you'll not be surprised that a politician in opposition could be called that you have made X or Y statement. Now, I would have wished or thought that with this acquisition of this equipment, we would have zeroed in on narcotics trafficking by transnational organized criminals. Because that is what the tool is meant for, to be able to look at and listen to everything that anybody who has been approved by a court. Given Article 18, which was why I asked for your constitution, Article 18 grants all citizens privacy of their homes and property. So your phone is your property. The state has no right to find out what is on your phone unless the state has gone to court to make a case that we suspect that given the lifestyle of Dr. I'm using as an example, Dr. Susan, we suspect that she has some other sources of, nefarious income. So can you give us what the Americans call probable cause? Can you give us the authorization to investigate further?
That's right.
That is what the government should have been done. Some of these monies, by the way, per our democratic structure, electoral structure, who in this country is responsible for elections management? Is it not easy? So if you want to build capacity for rigorous management of our elections, do you give the monies to the EC or you go and give the monies to the political opposition? By the way, there were about 13 on the electoral list. Did all of them receive monies, including the independent candidates, including the MPP, or was it only the NDC? Now, to now say that these things are classified actually is a violation of the Constitution.
Yeah. The recipient of the
yes,
money.
Because the Constitution, 187, the functions and purposes of the Auditor General says that nothing is precluded. All that we need to do is to do the vetting and give security clearances for certain individuals to now look into the books and not to have this kind of situation where, according to Mr. Domolevo, I spoke with him yesterday, since about 2019, it doesn't look like the Auditor General has been examining the books. Because 2019 was when the issue started. And then he was fired and he went home. We need, indeed, in a proposal or memo that I sent to the Constitutional Review Committee, this was one of the issues that I raised. We need to tighten our oversight of our intelligence and security institutions. Yeah. Look at these armored cars. I'm digressing a bit.
Yeah. No, it's good.
1972 Soviet-era armored cars with the VIN number scratched off, replaced with 2002, purchased, and then given to the Ghana Armed Forces to deploy to UN mission. It happened because Parliament did not have the remit to look inside the details. Yeah. We're only learning after the fact. So, Honorable, this mantra of national security, yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, the Minister of Defense received, is it 14 armored cars, Puma,
yes,
donated to us by the US government. Is that national security or is not national security? So if Ghana had used its own money to buy the armored cars, that one would be classified. But I'm saying, and I want Ghanaians to understand that, from the countries where we get these software, cyber security and so on, their countries go to their senates and parliament to tell their representatives how they have deployed such sensitive equipment. So from the word get-go, the intelligence communities around the world know.
Yeah.
So to sit here in Ghana and say that because a Makola woman, with due respect to them, has not heard that Ghana has bought spyware, it means that it's classified. It's not classified. Every foreign agent in our embassies in this country knows or would know about this. So let's craft a democracy that is transparent, is open. Indeed, I would be happy that today the NDC will use the same equipment to spy on the opposition, the same way that they spied on them.
You cannot.
But that is not the kind of democracy that we are looking for.
Right. So you make reference to that research study.
Yes.
That points to the fact that equipment were acquired. That was sometime.
These 5 countries were paying
to spy
on 2 billion. It's on a monthly basis. 2 billion every month by these 5 countries, depending on how much of it that you bought. So it's not that you buy it one time and that is the end of it. Till today, we are still paying. So let's use it for the true purposes of national security, i.e. narcotics, human trafficking, small arms, and then even this galamsey. The software, the equipment has the capability to listen to those who are in galamsey. Yeah. And to be able to track them in addition to the drones and so on. If that had been done, everybody would have been happy, but not in this manner where you are saying that, and I don't want to argue, because somebody spoke to me, a member of the Defense and Interior Committee currently constituted, that he never received any money from Edubuahin. By the way, at the time that Edubuahin was talking about, he was not, the act had not even been established.
So are these worth looking into? Or this you
They are, except that by his conduct, he's also breaching national security. If he's got any evidence, he must present the evidence to the court. And if the court so decide, the court can hear the evidence in camera. But not to behave like Okwanansi, to try and wriggle yourself out, then you publish everything like this, and then you claim that it's national security. I don't buy into that. Let's get to know what these monies have been used for. You see what I mean? And then Ghana will be safer. than this idea that let's sweep it under the carpet because it's going to expose a lot of things and a lot of people.
Very, very important point. Madam Chairman, I'll give you the last word on this. Quick one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the man is a spy master, so smokes and mirrors, you know, and this is some of it, putting out things there that, you know, I mean, he's a national security person, and national security conduct has security implications for us. So why are we afraid? Because, you know, such misconduct has security implications for us. So we actually want to see that he is prosecuted without, you know, falling for these kind of smokes and mirrors. We're not buying it. I mean, we know of in other jurisdictions, let's say the CIA and FBI, of people who have misconduct themselves and have been charged and have been prosecuted. It doesn't save him from anything. I think that there are protocols put into place that ensure that whatever is coming out, necessary, because too many times under the cloak of classified things happen, and we are shortchanged as a people for it.
That's what Ken talked about.
Just a quick one. Just a quick one. Now, between US, UK, India, Kenya, South Africa, and Ghana, the only country that we're at par with is India, where oversight is loose. We don't get anywhere near Kenya or South Africa in terms of democratic oversight of their intelligence and security institutions. And I think that is where we need to aim at. Because for all that we know, a lot of scarce resources have been wasted under the guise of national security.
That's what we've been complaining about.
Right. Thank you so much, Colonel Festus Abuaje. I really do appreciate your thoughts on this matter and the expert analysis you bring to this. And can I spend 30 seconds on this?
Well, you see, for me, I think that those who know it have said it all, and the fact that this case is in court. But you know, this issue about parliamentarians being paid money, it's not new. When I was managing director of Graphic, there was a day that I was summoned to the Public Accounts Committee, and it was over some 67 CDs between GPAC, which was our subsidiary, and us. And we were told to pay money. And I said to them that, so I actually got a letter from them, and that letter I have. So this money, where we pay money to people, fortunately for us, the president has brought the code of ethics, which says that you should not be collecting money for work that you're already being paid for.
Thank you.
So I'm hoping that it extends to the members of parliament as well.
Engineer Dr. Ken Ashigbe, convener, Ghana Coalition Against Illegal Mining, and also CEO of Ghana the Telecommunications Chamber. Also, Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, is a security expert. Colonel, I do appreciate you, Engineer. Thank you so much for coming. And Martin Peebles, private legal practitioner. Council, appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. Also, Madam Susan Edouard Mankwa is Executive Secretary of National Interest Movement. Madam, appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming. Phyllis Kwachofosu is Member of Parliament for the Brasebo Kwamankese constituency, Minister in charge of Government Communications, speaks for the President. I thank you so much for coming. And happy birthday.